Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the EXP Share podcast. My name is Matt, and with me today is my friend Will. Will, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Really, really excited to get started on this podcast.
Yeah, we were just talking about how there's always ideas that we have and we never really execute them. So today, and that was not a pun intended, nothing there, but today we actually are going to do it. We are going to actually be talking about Pokemon. We're going to be talking about the new releases from Temporal Forces. We're going to be talking about how this all relates to the standard, to GLC. We're going to be talking a whole bunch of different things. Before we get into that, today being our inaugural episode, I think it would be good for us to kind of just share about one another and what we do, our history with the franchise. I'll let you open up with that. So, Will, what's your history with Pokemon? How far back does that go?
I mean, I
What do you
think
got?
like a lot of us, it started when, in childhood, from the very, very beginning, I think like
Yeah.
1998, I got, red and blue on my Pokemon, on my Game Boy Pocket. I didn't even have a color yet. No color
Pocket.
yet. Yeah, no color yet on my Game Boy. I was like right there at the very beginning, and then, trading Pokemon cards at recess. Everyone was collecting them. It was a phenomenon. Unfortunately, I don't think I kept all of them. I'm almost certain I had, first editions that, get lost with time.
Yeah.
But even back then, I still have my Blastoise, Shadowless Blastoise. I lost connection with this TCG. I've played every game since, but about a year and a half to 2 years ago, I was doing extra hours, making extra money, working at a board game store. I got discounts on Pokemon cards, and I just started collecting. And I think during the pandemic, the
Yeah.
fever, the fever was crazy. Like everyone was collecting during the pandemic too. The prices skyrocketed, and I was collecting then too. So a slow journey also to playing from then, from the collection, but over the last year, started playing, started competing, and I actually even made my very first day two at Sacramento this year. So definitely a good journey so far.
Yeah, that was exciting. I remember when you came back and you shared that news with us, and there was some fishy stuff that happened on that. We can talk about that another time. But yeah, thanks for sharing, man. I guess I can go ahead and just kind of dive into myself real quick. Like you had mentioned, childhood thing, kind of bring you with you as you grow up. I remember that day that I got my Game Boy Color. It was a Pikachu Game Boy Color, and I got red and blue and yellow. I got spoiled that Christmas.
Wow.
And to this day, it is like the best Christmas gift I ever got. Don't hopefully my wife didn't hear that, but it was easily the best Christmas gift I ever got, and that really is what set off my fandom. A little bit like you, I was kind of in and out, never really stayed with it super consistently, but somehow, some way, Pokemon was always just kind of part of my life, whether I wanted to be or not. Um, Pokemon Go is really what ignited that again. I had not
Yeah.
played any of the video games. Previously, I think the last game I had played was Diamond and Pearl,
Oh,
which I don't even
wow.
know what year that was released. 2007,
Yeah.
six,
That wasn't even the last
something.
DS game. We had Black and White after that, and then
No,
you missed the
way.
3DS generation, and then yeah. Wow.
So when I came into 150, I'm sorry, 151, when I came into Pokemon Go, it was all the original 151. And you can go around and you can play with your friends and experience the world and travel and visit places and catch Pokemon. Like, what is there not to like about that? I always joke, I think I made this joke with you recently, like that was the closest we ever got to world peace. I really genuinely believe that. It was just such a good time. And then I fell out of that for a few years. And then it wasn't until a little bit like you, 2020 came in, the end of 2020, and I had picked up oh geez, I'm forgetting what they're called. The Battle Academy, I believe is what they're called.
Yeah.
I picked that up, and my wife and I were kind of playing, and it just kind of took off from there. That's how we met each other through cards and things like that. And now we're here doing a podcast. It's kind of insane the journey that I've had with Pokemon over my 31 years of life, but I'm really happy it happened, and no shame for being a fan of the franchise.
Oh, we've come a long way, and no, I have to thank you too because you started a Pokemon TCG group. I just looked on the Pokemon locator, when I moved to California here for the first time about a year ago, and your group came up, and that really escalated my love for the TCG and for competitive because I was kind of dabbling. I was building those pre-release kits and really kind of just being very casual about it. But
Yeah.
once I started playing with you guys, I think it was a couple of weeks after I met you, you invited me to my very first Fresno regional. So from like almost nothing, never having built a competitive deck to getting to go to a regional with you guys, that was a really cool experience. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
brought
that
me
was
in.
my first. Yeah, no, that was my first regional too, and it was a lot of fun. Obviously, none of us did exceptionally well that time, but that's okay. It was
Definitely
a lot
not.
of fun. Yeah, it was a good experience. you could say some things about the venue. Obviously, we don't have to talk about that right now, but overall, it was a really good experience. I know you just signed up for Vancouver, so you got that coming up, and we have a pretty good group going with us to LA. So I think we're all excited about that. So I think really the basis of Pokemon and really what it's done for me, I think for you as well, it's brought us together with other people. And it's really allowed us to share in our nerddom with other people who have become friends. We do things outside of Pokemon now, and that's just been a really great experience. So yeah,
Pokemon
I'm
brings
very
people
grateful.
together. Pokemon really brings people together. So
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, it does. Pokemon and food, those are the two things that bring people together. So there you go. Well, all that out of the way, the quick introductions, I think we can go ahead and jump into the new set, which everyone is super excited about. We know that Paldean Fates is coming out this Friday. I don't know, maybe Will and I, maybe we're too sweaty to even care about Paldean Fates. I don't even know. I mean, there's some cool stuff in it. Yeah, you'll add some bling to GLC, maybe your standard stuff, but in terms of its impact on the meta, it's not really there.
Yeah, I mean they're mostly cards that we've already seen before. I think there's a handful, five or six cards that are completely brand new. One of them is actually kind of meta relevant. I think that Japan's had it for a while. It's the
Was that
sorry, I
the
should
stadium, the Psychic
the
Stadium?
stadium, the psychic stadium that allows you to heal 30 from when you
Yeah,
attach a psychic. But other than that, that'll help Gardevoir a little bit in the current meta because I feel like it's kind of fallen off, even though it's still a really really strong deck. I think Gardevoir could use that, as the main single prize attacker deck that's in the format right now. It could use a little bit of a boost, and it only has a few more months to go before most of the important pieces kind of rotate out. So that'll help it, I
yeah.
think, close out on a strong note before it has to kind of completely rebuild itself. Other than that, yeah, I mean it's just cool cards for the collector in me. There's a few, SIRs that look really cool that I want to collect, but you know, you know how that goes. These are gonna be $100 cards. We may or may not pull them. You have the most insane luck, pulling three Ionos, three
Just two,
Alternate
just
Ionos.
two,
Okay,
just two,
just two.
just two. I mean, still, I mean, that's
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, but just two.
So yeah, are there any cards that have caught your attention that you just want to give a quick shout out to? But other than that, I feel like there's not much that I'm super excited for.
No, I mean, like you said, just the art and that set is it's gonna be incredible. I've never really cared for shiny Pokemon to begin with. Obviously, in the video games, it's exciting to catch one, but in terms of like the TCG, like I'd rather have a nice art over I don't know a black Charizard. I know that's probably blasphemy for some of the people who are going to be listening to this, but I just never really cared. So I will say though that Mew, the SIR Mew,
The blue Mew,
yes,
I do
very
have to
cute.
get. I do
Yeah.
have to get that card. The shiny Gardevoir too. Gardevoir also holds a place in my heart as the very first deck that I made, meta deck that I ever
Mm,
made. It was a deck I
okay.
brought to Fresno, and I won one round with Gardevoir. But so yeah, that shiny alt art Gardevoir, I definitely want to get the Mew. Charizard, yeah, I don't really care about the
Yeah,
Black Charizard
yeah,
either.
yeah.
We have so many Charizard cards that they printed now over the last few sets. And I did pull the 151 Altar Charizard, so that's all I need. That one is a really beautiful card. Um, Other than that, like yeah, I can't think of anything else that I'm really super excited for Paldea. So um, unless you have anything else you want to shout out, I think we could move right into Temporal Forces.
No, I think we're good with that. I bought my ETB. I'll rip a few packs, and then I'm ready for temporal. So yeah, let's go and jump into it. You already got it up here on the screen, so we can kind of jump right in. I kind of joked before we started recording the site there sucks, so we can go and carry on from there. But I think it's important that we note there's a lot of cards in here that not only impact the meta, but there's also like cards that can definitely be included in a lot of GLC decks. You're going to see some. I think there's a card from every single type that's going to impact GLC in some way, positively or negatively. So let's just go and scroll down. I think a lot of this stuff is going to be bulk. This is stuff
Yeah,
that you can
so
just
we don't
kind of,
have to really read every single card here.
yeah, yeah.
We'll shout out the cards that we think are going to have an impact on meta or GLC. And just as a super quick, for people who aren't familiar with GLC, I think you should definitely check
Hmm.
it out. It's an alternate format that Andrew Mahone made. You play only one specific type, like a gym leader, grass or water or electric, and it's a singleton format, like Commander, like Magic the Gathering Commander, if you've ever played that. um, I'm not going to run through all of the nuance of it, but if you look it up, you can go to gymleaderchallenge.com and we'll talk about it a little bit as we get through some cards. So I'm
Yeah,
just going to
good
scroll and
call then.
and I'm gonna just scroll, and if you see anything that you think is gonna be particularly good for potentially, standard meta or GLC, just let me know.
Yeah, I think the shift tree is probably one of the, if we're talking about grass decks aside from the Ramblin, or whatever that
Hmm.
card is, we'll talk about that one later. The shift tree is kind of interesting for one grass energy, three opponents bench Pokemon just go back into the deck. I think that's a very powerful attack. It is on a stage two, so it may not be the easiest thing to pull off. And admittedly, like what are we getting rid of? I would say maybe leaning more towards GLC than anything in the meta. I can't imagine anything getting paired with this card right now, but at the very least, I would say this is a fairly interesting add to GLC if you wanted to be a troll. So, not super exciting. The art, the what would you call these? Secret illustration rare, art rare. I don't know what they're called, but I will say that is a very good looking card. So, Shift Tree, kind of a boring Pokemon, kind of a weird design. The tech's okay, but definitely more GLC than anything.
Yeah, definitely. I could see it. I mean, it's like, I mean, although it's kind of an Avery in the form of an attack, so you can still use Avery in GLC. I don't know how much more it would. Oh, I guess shuffled back into the deck, so it's not quite into the discard pile either. It's a little
Yeah,
bit weaker even than an Avery. So I don't know if in GLC it'll be it'll be used that much necessarily when you can have a
yeah.
supporter kind of do the same thing.
I mean, you could use this, and that kind of stalls the turn. You could boss up something else and take knockout on that the next turn. So it might have some utility in GLC, but again, it's. I wouldn't imagine seeing a lot of plays. So yeah, I think we
Yeah,
can go ahead and carry on from there. The Shroomish Breloom, not super exciting. This Rosalia is actually kind of interesting. If you look at
yeah.
this whole line here, the Rosalia Roserade line, that
Hmm.
ability Poison Point. If this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, is damaged by an opponent's attack, even if this Pokemon is knocked out. The attacking Pokemon is now poisoned, and we are seeing some stuff with status conditions right now with Cloth and the Electrode V. I know we are losing the Spicy Curry to rotation, which is really odd because Astral Radiance as a whole is not really rotating. It's just like one or two
Yeah,
cards in that set. I don't know who
strange.
made that decision at TPCI, but they did. Um, Kind of cool, kind of interesting because again, in GLC, status conditions actually do matter. You're not doing a ton of damage, so that little chip damage could lead to something a little bit bigger down the road. And then with Roserade's attack, you can't retreat next turn doing 70 damage. It's effectively 80 damage, maybe even 90 if you're not able to get out of the active, your opponent. So kind of interesting again, not super great. But I think these next few cards are actually really, really cool. We could spend a little extra time on
And
those
there's
ones.
actually a stadium that goes with this that's coming out in this. We'll get to that later, but I think there's a new stadium that's boosts the damage from poison by 20 damage counters. It's kind of like,
Yes, yeah.
so, I mean, you could use that. You could use Radiant Hisuian Sneasler that also boost poison damage. So you could increase your poison damage, I think, by a total of 40 every single turn. At that
Something
point,
along
you're
those lines.
starting to get a little more, interesting damage numbers. And in GLC, I could see that being pretty interesting. I still don't know if it's going to be enough for standard, but I think that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I will say I think there is actually a better Rosalia that you maybe even a better Roserade. There might just be a whole better evolution line. So unless your deck is really focused around like conditions,
Mm,
may not see a ton of play, but I think it's just kind of noteworthy there. But I think this Turtwig line is really, really interesting. A lot of people are saying this
yes.
is going to be the counter to Charizard and Roaring Moon, of course, with the weaknesses to Graspy and Dark Pokemon. I don't know if that's true. I think it's a pretty cool card.
I like it a
But
lot.
again,
I mean, I've always liked
really,
Torterra. Diamond and
okay,
Pearl
okay.
was like my high school, and I really got into Diamond and Pearl. Torterra was my starter. Um, he's just a sick Pokemon, and he obviously gets weakness on the dark type Charizard that's running through the meta right now. But unfortunately, yeah, I don't know if this card has enough otherwise. Like, I think it's built to be the Charizard killer, but it's not quite doing enough damage, I think, to handle the rest of the meta. With weakness and with six grass Pokemon out. So this attack takes one grass energy to attack, and you do 30 damage for every grass Pokemon you have in play. So you have a full bench, you got all six out, you're doing 180 damage, and 180 times two, you're doing 360 damage for a KO on Charizard. But 180 damage on the rest of the meta, you're basically two hit KOing everything. The one thing that's benefit for Torterra is most people are going to be two-hit KOing you in return because you have 340 HP. You're just freaking huge. Your second attack also heals you. there's other Pokemon. I think there's another grass type that we're going to see later that might also synergize well with this grass Pokemon, with Torterra that also heals. Um, we'll get to it in a second. So you could be constantly healing. You could be, chipping away 180 at a time, and then hoping that you're surviving and just winning that prize trade. But yeah, in this format, I just don't know that many decks that are surviving that can't one hit KO, most basic Vs, basic EXs. So what was the there's I feel like you tried to build the Blastoise deck and he was also huge and he also took 30 less damage from attacks with his ability and stuff like that. But I think the tank and heal format, tank and heal like style of deck,
Archetype.
yeah, archetype has not really worked. Wigglytuff was a thing, or people tried to make Wigglytuff a thing for a little while. Um, I don't know. I don't know if it's actually, but just one quick last shout out. This Turtwig and Grottle line aren't necessarily the best Grottle and Turtwig line because we also have the Grottle line that allows you to search your deck once per turn for any grass Pokemon. So I think that'll allow you to that'll synergize. That'll allow you to. I think it's called Sunburst Shell or something like that. It has an ability called
Sun drenched. Sun drenched.
sun-drenched
Yeah.
shell that allows you to search and so you put that grottle out, you're going to be building and getting your pieces out quickly without necessarily having to use rare candy, which I think is a big benefit because a lot of people are starting to use devolution to as attack against Charizard because these rare candy decks are particularly Charizard are becoming a little bit of a problem. So you just devolve at the end of the game and they have no more candies left and they're kind of just out of luck. Um, it's interesting. At the very least, I think this is a cool card. It's not just bulk, but I don't know how much it'll be able to handle the rest of the meta.
Someone is going to try to make it work, and there might be some success stories coming out of Japan. You might get a couple online tournaments. Oh yeah, Totori came in third place or something like that. But I don't think it's going to really do that much. I think the other issue this card has going against it is you're going to have that new ace spec card. I'm forgetting the name of it. The powered up choice band essentially, 50
Yeah,
extra damage to your X Pokemon. Charizard, I don't know if it's going to play that over Counter Catcher Ace Spec, whatever that card is called. We could talk more about those Ace Spec cards later on today, but 340 is not unimaginable for some of these decks. That's the one thing I'll say. So, again, a cool card, neat concept, but I just don't know if it's going to have the success that people want it to have. Because as you mentioned, that whole evolution line is extremely popular. I just don't think grass Pokemon in general always get the short end of the stick. I mean, Venusaur EX, very cool, kind of very similar concept, right? Big,
yeah,
bulky, not doing a ton of damage, it's going to heal. Just it's just not enough, and that's
doesn't
that's
work.
really unfortunate. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Oh well. Well, let's go ahead and carry on. We got some really good cards in this set. We got plenty to talk about. Shaman, not really much going on there. Cottony, probably not too much going on either. This
this
Whimsicott's, I think,
Whimsicott,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, this could be in GLC, but also, like I said, I think it's going to synergize with that Torterra because he's healing 150 every turn if he uses his second attack. Um, this uplifting heal when you evolve Whimsicott, you can heal all the damage from a Pokemon. Just in exchange, you have to discard the energy. And considering that Torterra's first attack has only, it only needs one grass energy. That could be interesting. It's kind of like a built-in. Is it Cheryl? Was Cheryl the one that? No.
Cheryl, Sharon's Care, maybe
Cheryl.
Sharon's Care, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, one of those. They're both heal cards. I don't know which one.
Yeah,
One of them is heal an evolution Pokemon, but in exchange you have to discard all the energy attached to it. Very similar thing there, just it's on a Pokemon instead of on a supporter. Um, but maybe in GLC, I think this could also potentially work. If I think Tank and Heal works a lot better in GLC. I personally play the Wailord deck, which is essentially a
I
100%
know,
a
I know.
tank and heal deck. So if there is a tank and heal strategy for grass, this would synergize well with that. I actually don't know. I don't play grass. So Deerling, Sawsbuck.
Yeah, not super excited. I will say that those illustration rares on the Deerling and the Sawsbucks really, really pretty. Kind of do all the season kind of thing. That's kind of Sawbucks. That's his whole deal. So really, really cool concept, really pretty art, but again, probably not super exciting. Like searching for a stadium on the Sawsbucks. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a stadium card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your deck. Could be cool. I mean, things like Town Store are going to be around. Still, we have things like Artisan. We have things. I don't know if anyone's playing Mesa Goes anymore, but that's still around. So getting a stadium can be helpful in some ways, but again, you're probably not playing this, especially with it being a stage one Pokemon. You're probably not going to get a ton of action out of it.
And considering Path to the Peak, I think, which is the stadium that hurts everyone the most, is rotating. If you
Yeah.
wanted to make sure, absolutely sure that you're never going to be, Ionopath and prevented from taking that last knockout, you could have this sitting out on your bench, I guess. Like if Charizard has so much bench space, like maybe if you wanted to play this instead of Manaphy and Jirachi to make sure it doesn't get Path at the end of the game, but Path's rotating, so not really that
Yeah.
applicable anymore.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually excited about Path to Rotation. I will say it is healthy for the game, but I cannot tell you how many times that card has screwed me over.
I
So
really
happy to
like
see it
Path. I
go.
hope they print another one. I think yeah, no, it's good to have things that can kind of counterbalance these incredibly strong EX cards. You know, um, right now we don't really have any single prize decks that are able to keep up, and I think Path is just one way that we keep those decks in check. Um, it'll be unfortunate, but I think at some point they'll probably print something similar moving
Yeah,
forward. Um,
absolutely, absolutely.
oh, one other tiny little interesting fact I think I saw on Twitter. This completes the trifecta, the foursome of Sawsbucks, because there's spring,
Hmm.
autumn, winter, and fall. They've printed in the past every season except for fall, and this one is the first fall Sawsbuck. Completes the
Interesting. I
foursome.
had heard that, but I don't know enough about that Pokemon to fully understand it. So yeah, this one though, the Bramblin, and then whatever the evolution is, I'm forgetting the name.
Oh, yep,
That is an interesting card. We can skip over this Delmise. No one cares about that.
yeah.
Bramble Gas. That is definitely worth talking about. So for everyone who's listening, not watching, ability We Resilience. For each prize card your opponent has taken, this Pokemon gets 50 plus health. And then for a grass colorless attack, that's energy cost there. Powerful Needles, 80 times damage. Flip a coin for each energy attached to this Pokemon. This attack does 80 damage for each heads. Now the attack is flippy, I will admit that, and flipping coins can be inconsistent. It makes for an exciting game, but that ability is going to be absolutely nuts. If we're just taking 5 prize cards and this is your last Pokemon on the bench, get that to the active, you're looking at a 350 hit point behemoth on a stage one Pokemon. And if you start pumping energy to it, and it doesn't say grass energy, I want to make sure that's clear for each energy attached to this
Oh
Pokemon.
wow.
So you can potentially even throw a double colorless on this, maybe even two. You can flip a lot of coins and potentially do a ton of damage. So at the very least, this is going to see play in GLC. There's zero doubt about that. This is going to be a staple, I believe, in the GLC grass
Yeah.
decks. Standard, I don't know. It's cool. It's interesting, but in terms of like its major impact on the meta, I don't think it's going to be there. But GLC, this is going to be a lot of fun to play.
There are entire decks built around Wailord, who only has 230 an effective 230 HP. This guy, even if halfway through the game, 3 prizes are taken, he's got 250 HP. So you can build an entire deck around this guy. You can, and even if he dies, you can bring him back out with a rescue stretcher or something. In addition, that attack is not bad. Like,
It's yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
you
not
know,
terrible.
3 grass, you're doing on average like 1.5. If you statistically average out, you're probably doing 120 HP. Um, and it, but you can do even more. You can accelerate grass. I think there's a lot of Pokemon that can accelerate a ton of grass. There's also stadiums. I think there's an older stadium that allows you to reflip coins. Um, I'm
I know
pretty
there's
sure.
a tool, tricky coin or something along those lines that does allow you to flip. If you get tails, you can or actually any result, you can just flip it again.
Yes,
I mean,
there was
I
a stadium.
that's made in heaven.
Right when I started playing, I remember seeing a YouTube video
Stadium.
yeah, there was a stadium that allowed you reflip. Yeah, you can look it up while I vamp here. But so if you accelerate a whole bunch of energy, if you get like 4 or 5 energy on this guy, and you're allowed to reflip and potentially get 4 times 80, you know, you're just one hit KOing anything in the format.
Yeah, and again, it's absolutely insane. I think it's going to be a really, really fun card to play. But again, I just Meta-wise, someone will make it work. It'll be very similar to Torterra, right? Like someone's gonna make it work. They're gonna get second or third place in some kind of online tournament. Everyone will be buzzing about it. You're gonna see it all over the ladder. But in terms of like taking it to a regional, like would I bring this to LA? Probably not. Grass type isn't really my type to begin with. But for me, like playing standard, being in a sweaty environment like a regional is, Flippy is exciting, but it's just not really gonna make it. I'm trying to find the stadium. I did find something, but I don't
It's an
think
older
that's
stadium.
this.
It's for GLC. So the stadium I was talking about is
Okay.
not in standard. Is it would not be
Okay.
a meta legal card, but for
Sure.
GLC, I think it's definitely legal. Um,
Glimwood Tangle. There it
yeah,
is.
there it
Once during
is.
each player's turn, after you flip any coins on an attack, you may ignore all the results of those coins and flip them again. So, I
That's
mean, it's all there, right? It's all there.
yeah.
So,
So you're
I
like
think
basically
GL,
increasing your statistics, you're way
yeah,
more with those flips. You're really kind of negating that 50-50 there, and I think that card will be really good in GLC.
yeah, pretty excited about that. We have some friends who play GLC Grass, so I'm sure they're excited about that as well. Um, Scovillian EX, not seeing much
No,
going on here. I think we can probably skip over him. This Rapska, though,
yeah,
if I'm
interesting.
even pronouncing that right. Yeah, this
Yes.
is a really, really cool card. So, again, for those folks who are just listening, this is a stage one Pokemon, involves some Rellor. The ability says it's called Spherical Shield, prevent all damage and effects. So, this is a big one. Prevent all damage from and effects of attacks done to your bench Pokemon by attacks to your opponent's Pokemon. So, this is a Manaphy and a Jirachi combined into one, essentially. Attack, not really worth noting, but that ability is really, really cool. I think the one thing this card kind of has going against it is a stage one, but people play Bibarel for draw. So I can very easily see people playing a 2-2 line of this to just go ahead and just completely bypass Manaphy, completely bypass Jirachi, and this is what you're going to be playing. I don't know if it's going to replace those two cards necessarily, but it's
Yeah,
interesting at minimum.
I think it's really interesting. I think the stage one really works against it because if your opponent decides to, snipe it, or I guess you can't bench snipe it, but boss it up and kill it, it will now take you, even if you want to, rot it back in,
Mm,
it'll take you 2 turns to get it back into play. With Manaphy or Jirachi, you can rod them back in and potentially get them back on your bench right that next turn. I think that one extra turn of potentially not having your shield could really kill this card ultimately.
very possible, very very possible. I will say though, I mean, in my experience, I've never had anyone boss up my Manaphy or my Jirachi. So that's, I mean, it's something to consider, right? I definitely think it's something that people will be looking into should the situation in that game call for it. But I'm excited about this card. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to make it work, but at the very least, I'm going to try. This is going to be on the ladder for sure. People are going to be throwing this all over the place. We have cards like obviously Radiant Greninja that does 92 to Pokemon that can definitely hit the bench. Lost Zone is not going anywhere anytime soon. Giratina Lost Zone is all over the top, really the top results of any regional you're going to be looking at recently. I believe it's like they've made one or two. I think Garatina has taken first or second place in the past like 5 or 6 regionals that we've had. Of course, winning the most recent one is Charlotte over the weekend. So, Yapska, cool card, really exciting. And that's kind of the temporal forces in general, right? Like we're just seeing a bunch of interesting things that potentially have a lot of value in decks, but time will tell. We have to get it out into the wild. We have to test it. I definitely do think this is one of those cards that people are going to be excited about.
And the next card I'm actually really excited about, not only because it is a grass attacker that can basically one hit KO Charizard. I think we need more checks on Charizard. It's also the second, you know, meta deck. It's I think at every of the last three regionals that have happened, it's the number one deck. Obviously, it hasn't won. I think it's kind of been taken down by Giratina over the last two or three regionals, but it's the number one played deck. Number one
Mhm.
played deck online. I feel like when I play online, it's number one played deck at regionals. So to have just more answers, there are very few cards that are in the current standard that can one hit KO Charizard. Um, so yeah, I mean, grass type is always done dirty, and I think this is a pretty cool card. Not only because of that, though, I think this card is also interesting because I think this, and we can talk more about both future and ancient Pokemon. we've gotten just a taste of it, I think, with Paradox Rift. I think this is the release that's really making future Pokemon and ancient Pokemon a force to be reckoned with. I think there's going to be a fully future deck that's going to be possibly built, like a future box deck. There's going to be an ancient box deck, and they're all going to kind of synergize with each other. And this is just like another piece that I think that'll work really well. You can just slot one Iron Leaves in your future deck. It'll be an answer to Charizard. Um, 180 damage, and you can kind of get it going the same turn you drop it because its ability here, Rapid Vernier. I don't even know how to pronounce Vernier. Once during your turn, when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may switch this Pokemon with your active. If you do, you may move any number of energy from your bench Pokemon to this Pokemon. So the second you drop it, you instantly bring it to the active. You instantly bring as many energies as you want to this Pokemon, and it's ready to go. So you can kind of just hold it in your hand, keep it in your deck, nest ball it out at the very end of the game when you need to one hit KO a Charizard or something. Um, and it's just a tech, yeah, just a one of tech card that kind of works. Um, yeah, I think that card's pretty cool. And we'll talk about, you know, future deck synergy and stuff like that, more future deck stuff as we go through these cards.
Yeah, I think the one benefit that Iron Leaves has over something like Weirdeer is the typing, right? So, I mean, colorless doesn't hit anything for weakness. Grass is a great typing to hit for weakness right now. So, yeah, I'm excited about this card as well. A one of, I think, sounds about right. You probably don't want to build a whole deck around this card, but that ability just allows you to take that big knockout at the end of the game. And really, I mean, what else is Charizard playing at the end of the game? You want to have that big Zard out there, 330 health, doing a bunch of damage. And this just cleans it out instantly. So going to be a fun card. I think we definitely will see play. And as you mentioned before, ancient and future definitely going to be their own archetypes in the meta going forward. Very similar of the fusion strike, rapid strike, and single strike. Right, you're going to have all these different kind of subtypes, I guess, if you will, within the meta that are really going to have a lot of impact for years to come. I mean, rapid strike is still seeing play, still having success. Single strike, Lugia, yeah, it's kind of floating around, but um, at the very least, you will have one of these archetypes, one of these subtypes, if you will. They're going to remain relevant until they rotate. So I think future probably more so than ancient. I like ancient more personally. I'm not sure. Did you play Scarlet or Violet? I never asked
Oh, what did I play? I think I played whichever one the ancient like my Pokemon was
you. Ancient.
Koraidon.
That's ancient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So that's gonna
ancient.
be Scarlet.
Yeah. So I really like ancient Pokemon. I am now starting to play Roaring Moon EX. The first time, my first success with the TCG was with Miraidon, who's kind of just like a big basic that can hit numbers fast. Roaring Moon, I think,
Mhm.
is just like the successor to that, especially now that Miraidon's going to fall off. I think with rotation, I think Roaring Moon is going
Um,
to take on that mantle, and he's going to be that next Miraidon type deck. And I've got him right here.
there you go.
Yeah, Roaring
Is that from
Moon
the
EX.
that
Yeah,
the promo box? Is that what
yeah,
that
the
is?
promo box. I usually throw away
Okay.
these big
Okay.
cards because I don't know what to do with them. But yeah,
Oh, don't throw
Roaring
them away. Give them to
Moon.
me. You know what I did with those actually is I went to some card shop recently, oh, years ago, probably at this point, and all those jumbo cards I've shoved them into what's essentially a top loader for a comic book. I don't own comic books. I don't read comic books, but this giant top loader is perfect for those jumbo cards. So, quick hint to our two listeners today: those giant top loaders for those comic books serve a great way to preserve those jumbo cards. So, something to think about. And they're only like $2, so yeah, something to think about.
Um, so one last shout out. You mentioned Iron Leaves might not be possible as its own deck, its own archetype. I do think it possibly could be, and it just as a hint to a future card we're going to look at in just a second. Um, there's this one Pokemon. It's the Cobalion. I don't know what his future name
Ah,
is, but it boosts the damage basically of all the other future Pokemon that are out. So 180 obviously looks like a pretty bad number, but there's lots of ways to boost your damage as a future Pokemon. You got a tool card, the Future Booster Energy Capsule that allows you to do 20 more damage. You got Cobalion you can put on your bench that'll boost your damage by 20 for every Cobalion you put down. So, you potentially get your damage up to 220, 240, 260, depending on how many guys you have and how many, if you've attached a tool or not. So could be a thing, especially I think with grass, there is a decent amount of energy acceleration. There's, a lot of ways to get energy onto this guy quickly. Its ability allows you to do that. So I think it could be a cool deck.
Yeah, absolutely. We're moving on to fire here. Not too much going on with the horses here. The Slugma, not super exciting. The cargo, sorry, dude, you don't got a
Nope.
lot going
Yeah.
on. Yeah, Victini
Victini,
Heatmore,
shuffle your hand into your
yeah,
deck, draw six. Like, as an attack,
mm,
I'm sorry.
yeah, not gonna really work out for you. But
Here
these
we
next
go.
couple of cards here, yeah, here we go. So this was a card I was really high on when I first saw it. A lot of people aren't really giving it the love that I was expecting to see online, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So we're going to be talking about the Litten line here, specifically the Incineroar EX. 320 hit points, a 2 retreat cost. Here's an ability for you. Hustle Play. Attacks used by this Pokemon cost essentially one colorless less for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So the main attack here, the only attack, Blaze Bomb, 240 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned, effectively making this a 260 damage attack. One fire, four colorless. So in a meta where we want a full bench all the time, every time, we're always just loading up our benches, this is going to be a really easy attack to pull off for essentially one or two energy. And I think that's going to be huge. A lot of people are saying, well, Zard is probably better still, hits for the better numbers in the late game. Incineroar is kind of cool in the early game. Totally understand. I agree on that point. But I think the one benefit that Incineroar is going to have over Charizard is you can get this thing going much, much quicker. I was already kind of testing around this idea of like just taking out the Zard line and slapping in Incineroar. Everything else stays the same.
Just, yeah.
You have your Pidgeots, your Arbins, everything else. Like the blueprint for what that deck is stays the same. You're just pulling out the Zard, putting in the Incineroar. Obviously, there's no way to really test that right now, but it looks good. It sounds good. In addition to that, you have the Relicanth, who we'll see later on, that allows you to use your previous evolution attacks. There is a really good Litten, I want to say, that says something like do an extra 20 damage for each damage counter on your Pokemon, something along those lines. It might be the Torracat. I don't remember exactly. I
I
can look
think it
it up in
says
a
so.
second here.
There's the Litten and the Torracat work together. The Litten has an attack that says um, it does only 10 damage, and if you were to be knocked out next, if you're to be
Uh,
knocked out next turn, survive with 10 HP left. So you can survive with 10 HP left, and then the
okay,
Torracat this attack
gotcha.
allows you to do double the damage of the damage counters on the Pokemon. So you could just one hit KO anything, be
Here it
done.
is. From the Silver Tempest set, Gritty
Hmm.
Claws for two fire energy, 40 damage base.
Okay.
During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon has full HP and would be knocked out, its remaining HP is 10. So that's on the Torracat, which means the Litten has this damage counter based attack that I think is going to sync really well with this card, and it's going to be able to do just a ton of damage here. It's also from Silver Tempest. Two fire energy reprisal, 20 damage per. This attack does 20 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So with 320 health, pairing that with the Relicanth, you're knocking out anything in the format. And that's just, again, a really, really cool concept. I'm not a huge fan of this Pokemon's design, this humanoid cat thing. Like, I don't really dig on that too much. Homeboy looks like he's been pumped with steroids. I don't really like that too much. But again, a really, really cool attack, really, really cool concept. We'll see more play than Charizard. I don't think so. It is a different typing technically. So fire, not a great type to have right now. Water isn't the best type into the meta right now, but there are some things that are around. Now, Palkia is still a thing. I'm excited about this card. I'm going to give it some try on PTCG. I'm going to see if I can get this thing to work. I think it's a really, really cool concept. Will it be better than anything else in the format? I don't know. Is it the best card in the set? Certainly not. But again, really, really cool card. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Cool card, cool ability. Again, the one problem is, your opponent can kind of just play around it. I think one deck that was really big right at the beginning of this format was Iron Valiant with
Entei.
Entei. Iron Valiant
Yeah.
Entei won LAIC, won the first big tournament of this
Yeah.
format. But I think it's because people didn't really know how to play around it. Entei needs to have, it does damage based on the number of benched Pokemon. And I think the second people knew what that deck was, they just stopped benching a lot of Pokemon. And I also think next format, with VIP Pass rotating, I think it's gonna be a lot
I
more difficult um, for people to establish their bench. Right now I think turn one, most decks can get their whole bench established with VIP Pass. Unless you're a stage two deck and you're playing that Buddy Poffin, which we'll get to later.
yeah.
Um, I don't think benches are going to be as full as quickly. And like I said, you could just play around it and not bench, and then you know make it a little more difficult for Aurora. But I also think it's a really cool, like Torterra. I think it has potential. It could be maybe a tier 2 deck, tier 3 deck, but still be very interesting. And I know, we're not the most die-hard players anyway. I think we like to play a little bit off meta. You're the Goldengo guy, which
Yeah.
honestly, I don't think it's necessarily a rogue deck anymore. It got a 30th at this past weekend's regional. So, and that was the biggest regional of all time. It got 30th, which is Goldango's best showing so far. So maybe Goldango has a shot moving forward.
I'm going to call it right now. Goldango will take a regional post rotation. Once you get Path of the Peak out of the way, you can free up all that space. You can take out all those workers out of the deck. I think Goldango is going to win a regional. It won't be me. I'm not going to be the one that's piloting that deck, but someone will do it. I'm confident in that. So,
If we want to I mean, I know we're going through news, but if we want to make completely ridiculous next format predictions, I'm going to make one
yeah.
too. I think that, man, I'm blanking. What is the Pokemon that's a car?
Oh, the Reverbroom
Revavroom.
or something.
I think Revavroom, no path two. Path obviously prevented its ability
Oh,
from
the
working.
four tools,
That
right?
allows you to have four tools. Its ability allows you to have
Yeah, yeah.
four tools on it. Obviously, there was vacuums, but you can only vacuum one tool at a time, you know? And once you use all four of your vacuums, you're done. I can start attaching more tools. I think Revavroom has a chance in the next format, but that's just a quick little aside.
No, I like that. I like that. I mean, now you got me thinking about. I pulled Tula's full arts, and I was like, "What am I ever going to do with these?" It's kind of a cool ability. It's actually pretty tanky too. It is really tanky, so
Yeah,
that's interesting. Now,
it's
after we're
tanky,
done with this, I'm
and
gonna.
you can tank more with tools. So, there's the belts that allow you to take 30 HP. You attach four of those, you're taking 120 less damage per attack.
I think the attack actually reduces damage on the next turn as well. So you're just
Yeah,
this big tanky thing that's doing pretty decent damage output, and you are just tanking hits over and over again. So
yeah.
definitely some potential there, but maybe we save all these crazy predictions for some episode in the future. But yeah,
Okay,
Incineroar EX, really cool card, really exciting. It will definitely see play, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
okay.
Yeah,
Um,
all these other baby fire Pokemon, not too much going on here. Nothing super
mm-mm.
exciting. I haven't really for JLC, so I think we can skip over those.
Yeah, for
We do have,
GLC 180, for two fire is not the worst percent of Scorch.
yeah, but your opponent has to be burned, so you're kind of having to wait that turn. Now there is things like the what's the card spicy curry that can get that done right
Insta
away.
burn.
But as in NJLC being a singleton format, it's going to be really difficult. You're going to have to get the Arvin to get the item to then play, and then you got to get this. So there's a lot of things that need to happen to make that work. But who knows? Gouging Fiery X, though, I think this is a pretty cool card, and I think this is actually something you're pretty excited about too, right?
Definitely. I mean, I think ancients in general, I like these big basics. You're not really having to evolve up with rare candies. You just put them out. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing tons and tons of damage. You gave a shout out to Single Strike and Rapid Strike. I feel like that's kind of how they're building these two
Yeah,
opposing, like, the ancients kind of feel like the Single Strike Pokemon. They're just doing big damage. They're just,
yeah.
doing their stuff. And Rapid Strike kind of feels like, I mean, sorry,
Future.
future Pokemon feel like Rapid Strike because they're doing all this tricky stuff. They're switching in and out. They're doing bench snipe damage. They're combining with each other. So yeah, I mean, I do like how they're building it. I think this is a really cool concept. And yeah, Gouging Fire. He's also. I actually think this synergizes really well with Charizard. I think you could just drop this one of these cards in a Charizard deck because early game Charizard, you're not really hitting big numbers. You're only doing 180. Um, to have another Pokemon that can kind of do a little bit better damage. I think at the beginning of this format, people were playing Entei with Charizard because, yeah, at the beginning it does
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more depending on how many bench Pokemon there are. It could do 200, do 20. That's slightly better than doing 180, but this synergizes. You use one of Charizard's abilities and you can get three fire energy out. If you have the switch, if you can get this Pokemon in the active, you're doing 260, and then you can take a pretty good knockout. This is a really unique um, secondary,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a secondary uh, thing on the attack. So most Pokemon say like, oh, you can't attack next turn, but this Pokemon's attack says this Pokemon can't use explosive fire again until it leaves the active spot. So you could stay 2 turns, you could stay 3 turns. This Pokemon cannot use that attack again until you switch to the bench and switch back. Which, I mean, considering that you're doing 260 for only three energy, I think that's fine. I think a deck like Charizard probably only wants to use Gouging Fire once at the beginning of the game anyway, maybe twice. And you can add a few more switches into your deck. It'll help you with a Snorlax match anyway. And yeah, I think this could be really cool. In addition, it's an ancient Pokemon, so you can Seta to it, you can accelerate energy, you can use it in an ancient box deck. I saw some people talking about potentially putting it in a Roaring Moon deck. Roaring Moon was using water energies and using Seta to kind of accelerate to Greninja and Energy Switch and stuff
Hmm.
like that. I don't think it would be that difficult to work this into a Roaring Moon deck either. It does slightly better damage than Roaring Moon's, who's only doing 220 if a stadium is out and you're bumping that stadium. If you don't want to bump that stadium or if you don't have a stadium out to bump, you're doing slightly better damage with this. So yeah, I think this could definitely synergize pretty well with a bunch of different decks.
Yeah, I think it is exciting. I will say the one thing that probably hurts this card is Escape Rope is rotating. As far as I know, we haven't had any announcements about a reprint. So there is Switch still. Switch will always be around. You have things like Professor Turo's Scenario, where just said just pick it up and throw something else in the active. So there are options. And I think Turo Scenario actually is a really cool concept with the Charizard deck. This way, you don't have to worry about necessarily just discarding all that stuff. At least I don't think Turo discards the energy. I think it all goes back to your hand. I could be wrong. I will have to look that up later. But if that's the case, that's a really great way to continue to use that energy over and over again. As we know, Charizard only plays, I mean, right now, Azul is only playing 6 energy in his deck, which is
Crazy.
super tight. I'm playing Charizard right now too. I'm playing 7. I'm not as good as Azul. Obviously, I cannot play that 6 count. It's just a little too scary for me. So, really cool card. I'm not a big fan of the design. I think it looks a little goofy, honestly. A lot of the ancient Pokemon do, but I still prefer them over the future, to be honest. So yeah, I think you made a really cool comparison earlier about single strike being ancient, future being the rapid strike, a little more methodical, I guess you could say. They're not going to go in there and bust your head open. They're going to kind of just put damage counters here and there. They're going to go ahead and kind of spread the thing out, and then eventually they're just going to just wipe your board clean. Whereas with the ancient Pokemon single strike, they're just there to, you know, bust you in half and then just take all your prize cards. So
Yep.
really, really cool. I'm really happy they brought back that kind of concept of like brute force and again a little more methodical when it comes to the damage. I really like that. I've always preferred rapid strike over single strike, but again, these cards are really, really cool. And I think that just the idea of like ancient future is just it's something different for Pokemon. So I'm really excited they did this.
Yep.
Um, yeah. This
So,
next card though, the total dial line. Again,
oh,
it will not see play in the standard. It will not. I can guarantee you that. But I would recommend this is something you throw in your GLC immediately. I mean, this is such a cool card, man. Let me read the ability for you real quick. So, ability on the Fraligator, Stage 2 Pokemon, Wild Force, from Wild Force, sorry, the Japanese set. Ability, Torrential Heart. Once during your turn, you may put 5 damage counters on this Pokemon. Kind of a lot with 180 health. If you do, attacks used by this Pokemon do 120 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon during this turn. Now, that's a lot of damage already. 120 is great for JLC. But for 2 water energy, Giant Wave, 160 damage. This Pokemon can't use Giant Wave during your next turn. Absolutely nuts. You're doing 280 damage, which knocks out that stupid Whale Lord that I could not knock out when you were over a couple days ago. Um, that's great. 280 damage, 2 water energy. You put a float stone on it, you just bring it back and forth from the active. This thing is going to be a force to be reckoned with in GLC. Again, in standard, I don't think it's going to see a lot of play. You might get some play with Palkia. 2 water energy kind of works well with that ability. But I think this is a really, really cool card. And plus, who doesn't like the evolution line? It's a blue crocodile that appeals to all the little kids in our hearts. I think it's just a really, really cool card.
no, this card is. I honestly think it's good enough that it could maybe see some play in standard. Like
Really?
280
Oh,
is kind of a number that kills all V stars. It kills a lot of,
yeah,
Pokemon. And with it being a single prizer that can be Iridaed for, you can Irida, Rare Candy. You can get it pretty quickly, like people do with Baxcalibur,
sure,
you
sure.
know?
I can
Maybe,
sit. I can sit. Maybe. Yeah.
maybe.
It's a bit. Again, I think in JLC this thing's a hit. I don't see any way
Oh,
this thing is not
there
included
is
in JLC. Yeah.
no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, it's going to be a hit in JLC. Standard, I think you're right. It is a maybe. Being a stage two is a little bit trickier to get out fairly quickly, but I mean, Chen Pao gets back Excalibur out on turn two, so
Yeah.
it's definitely within the realm of possibility. But again, just a really cool card, really cool concept, and I've always liked this Pokemon personally. This was my starter in what is that, Gold and Silver, I want to say.
Hmm, hmm.
So again, really, really cool card. I'm a fan of it. I might even build a Water GLC just because of this card. So
Throw it in with my Wailord and do
yeah.
even more damage.
Yeah, terrible, terrible, terrible. Sharpedo, not super exciting, kind of a cool attack for two colorless energy, bite away, 50 damage, flip three coins for each heads, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Probably won't see any deck in the sorry, won't see any play in the standard. But in terms of it being maybe something you could throw in GLC, might be kind of cool. Might also be something that people throw into like a control deck, but
Hmm.
nah,
Interesting. I mean, and
yeah,
you can do it for just a double turbo energy.
yeah, yeah,
Additionally, there's another card coming out that we'll see later, like Clippers or something. It's something Clippers, and
yeah, yeah.
it's an item card that it makes both you and your opponent discard until you have 5 cards left in hand. So you make them discard till they have 5. You use this attack, make
Oh,
them discard
jeez.
3 random cards, and now they've
Wow.
got two. Now they've got 2 cards left in hand, and they're feeling terrible. So that would be kind of a killer combo in a control type deck, but.
You know what? I can see it being a Snorlax stall, which I mean, I hate that deck with a deep passion. I do not like that deck at all. But I mean, yeah, I mean, think about it. Late game, you've just been passing the turn back and forth over and over again. You got 30 cards in your hand. You play the Clippers, you bust this thing out, and at that point, your opponent's just going to rage quit. They're going to flip the table and they're done for the day. They're going to quit Pokemon right there on the spot. So, it could see some play in that deck. I will say that. And pairing it with the Clippers, I hadn't thought about that until right now. That is gross. Absolutely gross.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
shouldn't have given people any ideas. That's pretty terrible.
No, no. I mean, someone's gonna figure it out. I hope I don't run to it on the ladder. I can tell you that much.
Just moving right along, nothing
Yeah,
really crazy. Frostmoth, nothing. Wiglet, nothing. I think there's a better Finicin and Palafin with
yeah.
the one that does 210 damage just by retreating and getting back to the active. Now we're talking. Now we're getting to another ancient Pokemon here. Um, Walking Wake EX. It has the Azure Wave ability. Damage from attacks used by this Pokemon aren't affected by it. So it's basically uh,
Shred.
damage from yeah, shred. So you can just shred through anything through any abilities, and its attack for 1 waterless and 2 colorless energy does 120 damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon is affected by a special condition, it does 120 more. So this is a bit trickier to make sure that your opponent has a special condition. Like you said, Curry is rotating, um, but Brute Bonnet was used in Cloth. It had some success in Cloth. You could use Brute Bonnet in addition to this, so you could be doing 240 damage plus poison, 250. If you're using Hisui and Sneasler or the Stadium, you can bump that up even more. Get up to 270 potentially. Um, I think you could actually get up to 290 if you're using both Hisui and Sneasler and that Stadium. So those numbers are okay. I don't know if this will really be a deck on its own. But like I said, I think all of these different ancient Pokemon that you can accelerate energy to, they may be able to work together just because you can accelerate any energies from the discard pile. You can mix and match a lot of energies. I don't think it's as good as the other ancient Pokemon. I don't think it's good as Roaring Moon. I don't think it's good as the last
Yeah.
whatever the fire one was called. So
Gouging? No, is
yeah,
that what is that? Frenzy? No, it's Frenzy Gouging is
it's
roaring.
Gouging
What is that
Fire.
one called?
Gouging
Gouging
Fire.
Fire? Is that what it's called?
You were
A
right.
lot of gouging with ancient Pokemon for some reason. Very violent, but yeah, I think you're right. It's definitely the worst out of the three. We have the Raikou ancient long neck thing, whatever that thing is,
I'm
Thunder
really excited.
Moon.
Raging
That's a good
Bolt.
card. It's Raging
Raging
Bull. It's
Bolt.
coming up right after this, I believe, because I believe it is. No, it's a Dragon type, so we're probably going to see at the very bottom of this list. But yeah, Walking Wake, cool card. I again not super excited about the design of this Pokemon, but the card is, I would say, just okay. It certainly is the worst out of the three. What do you so? A quick question. So Entei, Raikou, and Suicune, are these dogs to you, or what are they?
I always thought they were dogs. Yeah, they're kind of
Yeah, yeah.
legendary dogs. The legendary dogs of Gold and Silver.
I just don't understand how they're dinosaurs like 5,000 years ago. Now they're dogs in present day. I never really. I mean, it's Pokemon. We
The
don't have to
lore, yeah,
understand,
the
but
lore doesn't really
yeah,
make
who knows?
sense.
Yeah, I personally like the concept, like the burn tower and everything. I always thought that was a really cool storyline. Turning them into dinosaurs, okay, that's going to
I mean,
appeal
the
to a
long
seven,
neck
8 year
Raging
old.
Bolt, he's like a Brontosaurus. So I don't know. I'm really excited about Raging Bolt. We'll get to him.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, let's go ahead and carry on here because I think we both want to get to that card. I think we're both really excited about that card.
But yeah,
Um,
I'm just gonna keep going. If you see any
yeah, yeah.
Pokemon here that really needs to be shouted out, I don't think there are too many of
The
them.
Vikavolt, however you pronounce that, a
Mhm.
stage one Pokemon, 160 health for two lightning energy, serial cannon, 120 plus damage. This attack does, excuse me, 80 more damage for each bench charge bug. A ridiculous attack. It's gonna be fun. Someone's gonna make a meme deck out of it, but I think a lot of people like Vikavolt. I think it's a very popular Pokemon, so I think someone's going to try to make this work. Technically, you could start doing some pretty big numbers. I mean, two more Charger Bugs on the bench, and suddenly you're doing what is that, 280 damage, which is taking out, as you mentioned, a lot of V stars. It's a pretty good number to hit right now. So, not not super exciting, honestly, but it will never see play in GLC or anything like that. But I
Yeah,
think
with a
it's a pretty
singleton
cool
format,
card.
you can't have
Yeah,
other,
impossible.
you literally can't have other Charger Bugs on your bench. That's
Yeah,
unfortunate because I think it
so
would be cool in GLC, but I don't know if it'll keep
yeah.
up in standard.
Yeah, so definitely something cool, but I'm not going to spend any more time on it. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Emperor Bolton, nothing really exciting here.
Boltund,
When I
I will say
actually,
Boltund just for Miraidon because I think one of the biggest losses
mm,
is Flappy. It's not accelerating as much
yeah,
energy. Just
sure.
turn one, getting two more energy onto your bench. Helping power up that you know Iron Hands or that Raichu, and it's 120 HP, so it doesn't get Cramorant. Cramorant can't knock it out in return. You know, it's actually I think pretty good for a turn one, just like getting your board established. Um, I think it could be
I,
interesting in Miraidon.
I have a confession to make. As you know, I didn't play a lot of the games between Diamond and Pearl up till now. I did not know this thing evolved from the Emperor. I had no idea. I thought Bolton was like its own individual. It was its own Pokemon. So
Oh
I,
wait, no,
I
it's a
learned
stage
something
one, so you
today.
can't do a turn one. I'm
Yeah, I can do a
completely
turn
wrong.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Never mind.
But
So then
I
this
mean,
card is
still,
useless.
it could be something. I mean, Flappy is technically stage one. Yeah, that's from the bench. It's not an attack; it's an ability, but still, so something to think about, I guess. What Trio EX? When I first saw this card, I got pretty excited, and then I remembered Manaphy is the thing, so didn't really last very long. But for this is a actually a terrestrial Pokemon. So What Trio is typically a water rock Pokemon. I want to say here with the terrestrial typing
Mhm.
is an electric. First attack for one water energy. Triple pump. Discard up to three energies from your hand. This attack does 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy card you discarded this way. So you can kind of snipe things really, really easily with this card. If you get it set up turn one before they get a Manaphy out, maybe you're like picking off a bunch of little. I don't know. You could get a Charmander potentially. It could be really anything else that's really a basic Pokemon. Kind of a cool idea. It's not going to see any play because Manaphy is a thing, but I thought it was just kind of a cool attack.
Yeah, and it kind of synergizes with Goldango. A very similar style of attack. You just put in a couple water, a couple water energy into your deck. You're discarding energy anyway. You're using superiors anyway in Goldango. Gives you the chance to snipe. But like you said, with Manaphy, I don't know how many decks are viable to be sniped. Not every deck plays Manaphy, so like maybe a one of Wugtrio and a Goldango deck could be interesting. Snipe some Bibarels, snipe some. A lot of decks these days, especially the fast decks like Roaring Moon, like Miraidon, are playing Squawkabilly, which is 180
Mm-hmm.
HP. So which I think that would be you'd be doing 180, so you'd be killing those Squawkabillies. But um, yeah, and Roaring Moon and Miraidon don't play Manaphy. So, you
That's
know,
true. That is true. Yeah, I will say Manaphy is seeing less play, which might give a little validity to this card. But like I think if it is seen play, then you throw Mana in the deck, and that's it. It's kind of a dead card right away. So cool concept, but again, like some of these other
I
cards we
mean, I
talked
just know
about
I
today.
will never be playing Manaphy in Roaring Moon because you just need that deck, that bench
Yeah,
space. You need that squawk.
yeah.
You need that, all that bench space for two more Roaring Moons, a Greninja. We're really meant to be doing quick damage. We don't care about if we're getting KO'd in return. We just want to do damage as quickly as possible to you. So maybe.
Yeah,
I think that is also
absolutely.
a maybe. Um, a lot of these future,
Nothing's.
I mean, I think it's just cool to have, future and ancient single prize Pokemon. I don't necessarily know if any of these are going to be particularly good, but
The
I'm not
Iron
sure.
Thorns is actually interesting. 140 health on a basic Pokemon here, so it's a pretty good amount of health. One lightning, one colorless energy. Destroyo Pressor. I think I'm pronouncing that right. 70 damage per. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. This attack does 70 damage times each future card you find there. Then discard the revealed future, shuffle everything else back into your deck. I think the big benefit here is obviously you can just throw this in with any kind of future deck and it can start doing big numbers. It's a basic Pokemon, it's a single prize, not going to really be something that's going to have a huge impact on the prize trade. But you got to shuffle those other cards back into your deck. Other cards typically say you have to discard everything else, and that's a just it just hurts when you have to discard a bosses, a professors, and I don't know, maybe a buddy pocket
Mhm.
nowadays. So that does kind of suck. But in this case, you don't have to do that. So I think this card definitely will see play in some kind of future deck. I'm pretty excited about this card as well. I know a lot of the folks online are really excited about this card, so I do think it will see play.
Yeah, I know, I agree. I think that it could be pretty cool. And um, just having single prize attackers in a deck that might be built around multi-prizers, like just that one turn where you just need to survive, hope they don't have boss, that could really help. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. Definitely early game attacker. You don't want to be discarding things too late. So I think early game is probably the better play here.
mhm.
We're on
Um,
to Psychic now. Nothing.
nothing, nothing really crazy.
Yeah.
Bronzor, Bronzong.
The
Mm,
Bronzong actually has a pretty interesting attack. Stage 1 Pokemon, 110 health. The first attack for 1 Psychic Energy. Evolution Jammer. 30 damage. Your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their Pokemon during their next turn. So effectively, it's Rare Candy or bust. That's all you can do. Now, it's definitely more stally. It's not going to really be something that you're going to be attacking with often, but it could be something that, early game kind of prevents your opponent from setting up while you're doing the setting up on your side of things and potentially just kind of knocking things out on the bench that are, smaller, basic stage 1 Pokemon. Cool idea. Might see play in GLC, but standard. Some will try to make it work just like a lot of these other cards, but I don't think it's going to really be an impact on the meta. But
no,
again, cool attack. Cool attack.
DLC though, I could see
Yep.
it. Although
Psychic
Psychic, do
already
we
has
need Psychic?
so
Yeah, do we
many,
need Psychic to be
right?
better? Come on.
I we don't. We don't. That the simple answer is we do not. All right. Kind of gonna fly through some of these cards now. We're hitting that 1 hour mark, and we don't really want to make everyone's ears bleed for too much longer. But we can go ahead and carry on here a little bit longer. Fluttermane. I know a lot of people are disappointed with this card because Fluttermane in the video games is just such a broken Pokemon. Everyone talks
Mhm.
about how much they love hate this card. The ability is pretty cool though. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's active Pokemon has no abilities except for witching our flounder. So it's kind of cool, kind of interesting. No abilities, but needs to be in the active. So uh, I will say, knock this thing out really quick. Only 90 hit points is not going to be something that's going to be impossible to knock out. Cool ability. I think people are just generally disappointed in this card, though.
Yeah. Iron Valiant, on the other hand, this first one
Mm-hmm.
right here, Majestic Sword, two psychic and a colorless, 100 plus damage. If you played a future supporter card from your hand during this turn, this deck does 100 more. That's pretty good. I don't know. I mean, how many future supporter cards do we have? We have Professor Turo's. I think there's a new one coming out in this deck that is okay. So I don't know if I think this card will get better as they print more future
Mm-hmm.
supporters. I don't know if in this format it'll necessarily be good because I don't think those two like you're not going to be playing a Professor Turo's every turn. That's preventing you from playing a real supporter, like research or
Yeah.
something. But as they print more future supporter cards, I think 200 damage is pretty darn cool.
Yeah, it's a good concept. It's a cool design, so I think people are going to try to make it work. But we have something kind of interesting coming up here after this. This is the Iron Valiant from the starter deck Miraidon. I don't know if we're going to get this card necessarily immediately in English here in the West. Um, Kind of interesting. One colorless attack or one colorless energy costs twin lasers, 20 damage. This attack also does 20 damage when your opponent's bench Pokemon. Not super exciting, but again, people love this card. People love this Pokemon, so they're going to try to make it work. Although this Iron Crown, we talked about this extensively earlier. Now we can really dive into it. Iron Crown EX, it's an EX Pokemon, so it's going to be two prizes, 220 hit points. I think that's what that says. A little
Yeah.
difficult to read. Ability Cobalt Command, kind of reference to the original Pokemon. Your future Pokemon's attack, except any Iron Crown EX, do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. I think what's important to know here is this stacks, and I know, Will, this is something you're really excited about.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, four Iron Crown EX down on your bench, you're doing 80 more damage per attack. That works with any future Pokemon that's working with, I mean, scarily that's working with Iron Hands.
Yeah.
So 80 more damage with Iron
Oh man.
Hands. Iron Hands potentially is doing 200 damage per attack. Then you attach the Future Booster Energy
Future
Capsule is doing
booster. Yeah.
220, which is like the perfect number to kill basic Vs, basic EXs. Iron Hands could be doing 220 220 damage and taking three prizes on a two prize Pokemon. That's kind of crazy. And of course it works with all the other future Pokemon. It's even works with these, these single prize guys. So
Mhm.
even if your Majestic Sword, if you didn't play a future supporter card, for example, like you could be doing 180 base damage with this attack, or 200 with the feature booster capsule. Like the damage stacks pretty quickly. So I think it's pretty interesting. I think people are going to make really cool decks with this, and especially as again more future Pokemon are printed. This is not going to be the last set with future and ancient Pokemon. This is really cool.
Yeah, definitely going to see play. I think it's a really cool card. It's a muscle band every turn for free without having to attach a tool or anything like that. So, and you can get this with S-Ball, which instant extra 20 damage right off the bat. I think this makes Iron Hands that much better. I think Iron Hands was not the face melter that everyone thought it was going to be coming out of Paradox Surge. Everyone was terrified of this card. It's going to ruin the meta. Everyone's going to be playing Iron Hands. It's been very good. It's done some things I've been the victim of amp you very much several times over, thanks to my wife. But I definitely do think that this card is definitely going to see play, and I'm excited about this card. So won't be so excited when I'm on the receiving end of things, but again, very, very cool card.
Very, very cool. Moving on to fighting type. Um, Type Metacham, nothing that jumps out. This card, however,
Yeah.
Relicanth. I think I've been digging through, which cards this really kind of synergizes with. I'm not sure yet. You shouted it out earlier with the Litten
The
and the
yeah,
Litten and whatever Litten evolves
Torcat.
into Torracat. Yes.
Yeah.
So Memory Drive, it has the ability Memory Drive. Each of your evolved Pokemon can use any attack from its previous evolutions. I think, no, like there's obviously hundreds and hundreds of cards that are still in standard. I don't think no one's thought about every possible combination of early, stage, basic stage one, stage two attacks that might be relevant. The one that I thought it's really interesting. I think Reggie Lecky V Max, which has 310 HP. Um, its attack, the basics attack, Reggie
Yeah.
Lucky V
Minus 100.
Max. Yeah, the Reggie Lucky V has minus 100. It does 100 damage and then takes minus 100 base damage from incoming attacks on the next turn. So
Right.
for a 310 HP V Max to be doing 100 damage and then taking 100 less in return, that's pretty cool. I think that will allow it to survive a little bit longer. It could be a turn to just you're going to survive. You know someone's not going to be able to do 410 damage to you, and you just get that quick 100 to make it easier to two hit KO. Those big EX Pokemon that are out there right now, like Charizard. Your Miraidon can only do 220, but Regieleki can quickly go up into the active, do 100 and survive. I think that could be pretty cool. And I
And
mean,
free retreat on the VMAX. So even if
yes,
it does take a big hit, bring it back and then throw Miraidon out there, throw your Iron Hands out there. Maybe that's like setup damage for Iron Hands. So I think there's something there. I think Relicanth is going to see play. Someone's going to crack the code. Someone's going to get the formula down. I'm excited about this card as well. I think just in general, Temporal Forces is just going to be a huge impact on the meta, and I'm can't wait. Paldean Fates, just get out of the way. Just move on, move on.
This card also, I think, is really
Yeah.
interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
think it synergizes really well with ancient Pokemon. I think there are going to be a couple of fighting type ancient Pokemon that we're going to get to in a second that I'm really excited about. But or Pokemon that use fighting type energies. But when you play this Drillbur, it has the ability Dig About, and when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 3 basic fighting energies and discard them, then shuffle your deck. So you're immediately getting these energies into the discard pile. Ancient Pokemon, love Professor Sada's. You're accelerating energy from the discard. Uh, I think there's other cards that also accelerate from the discard. Koraidon has the
Mm-hmm.
ability to accelerate. Is it up to two or three energy from the
Yeah, it's
discard? On
two. Yeah, Dino Cry, two basic fighting energy to your basic fighting Pokemon. I think that's an important note here. A lot of people tend to make the mistake they try to attach it to evolution. Once during your turn, you may attach two basic fighting energy from your discard pile to your basic fighting Pokemon any way you like. Your turn does end, but this is a really great way to set up turn one. Um, I think it's cool. I don't know if it's going to see like it's not going to be like a card you play four of in any deck or anything like that, but maybe one or two. Definitely to accelerate that energy. And like you said, with Professor Sada, you have a lot of potential to just get a bunch of energy on the board turn one.
Yeah. So I mean, you nest ball twice. You get a Drillbur and a Koraidon out, and you're kind of setting up. Your turn one to set up all your energy ready to go for turn two. Hey, maybe you can
The
make
nest ball, the nest ball wouldn't work on him. He needs to be played from hand, but it definitely works with the Crydon. So you might have to ultra ball
uh,
Gilbert. Does Body Poffin say go to your hand, or does it say go to your bench?
bench. Buddy Poffin won't work
Uh,
for him either. That's interesting,
yeah,
actually. It does make him a little bit less powerful now that I think about it.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But regardless, I think it still has a really good synergy with the Crydon and really just ancient Pokemon in general, the whole ancient archetype. So it will see play. It will see some play because I think people like Crydon. It's just hasn't really done anything yet.
what was the Pokemon that you tried to make work? He's got like the guacamole bowl as a head, and he has the ability.
Tinglu, Tinglu.
Tinglu, yes, he looks like
Yeah.
he's a guacamole bowl. Yeah, I mean Tinglu needs those. Needs those fighting energies in the discard too. For you were synergizing Koraidon
Mhm.
with Tinglu, with Drillbur. I don't know if you could make Tinglu work again, but maybe.
It's sleeved, so maybe one day I'll dust it off and we'll see what happens. Excadrill, not super exciting. The Golett, Golurk, again, not really much going on here. Golurk is just a little too niche with the Pokemon EX or V. For four colorless, not going to see a lot of play going on there. I think we probably just skip over all of these cards. Let's see. We have a Rockruff, a Lycanroc. Not much going on here. Uh, the Mudbray line, not super exciting. I do think this Colossal might be something. I could be wrong. Let's see. Cragalanche, 150 damage. Discard the top two cards of your opponent's deck.
A bit
Eh,
too expensive, I think. And we have a really cool Colossal
yeah,
for GLC, so I don't really
yeah.
know if this
Um,
one will be good. Great Tusk, we got an ancient single, well, we got a couple ancient single prize Great Tusks here. Are any of them that good?
the one from the actual set itself, not the one from the starter deck, I think
Mhm.
is pretty decent for two colorless attacks. Ground Collapse. I'm sorry, two colorless energy. Ground Collapse. Discard the top card of your opponent's deck. If you played an ancient supporter card from your hand during this turn, discard three. So Mill is really annoying. People love to play Mill. This is a good way to kind of start chipping away from those things. You can play Misfortune Sisters to start chipping away more. So again, I think one of those cards that definitely will see some play. Not going to win a regional or anything like that anytime soon. Maybe, who knows? But I think that first attack certainly is interesting.
Yeah, I've been really looking to see if we're going to get potentially just decent ancient single prize attackers. I think one of the weaknesses of decks like Roaring Moon and um, the other ancient Pokemon that we're going to see in a second is, they're two prize attackers. They're not that they're all basics for the most part. They're not that beefy. They're a little beefy. They're 230. They tend to be 230. But being able to mix in just a couple of single prize attackers would be good. And for right now, I'm not really seeing any that look like they're gonna um, help out too much.
Well, speak of the devil, actually, I think the Sandy Shocks, maybe. I'm gonna throw a big maybe on this one. Sandy Shocks, 120 damage. It's a basic baby Pokemon. For one fighting energy, Magnetic Blast, 20 plus damage. If you have three or more energy in play, this attack does 70 more damage. This attack isn't affected by weakness, so you're not going to be able to take a big knockout on a Reggie like a VMAX or anything like that, or Miraidon. But with Ancient, we already know we can accelerate energy very, very quickly into play from the discard pile, which is really really great. 90 damage for single prize. That's not bad. Chip damage. That's a good way to kind of just get some damage on the board. Is it going to see like a ton of play? Probably not. But I know Azul again. As you can tell, I watch a lot of Azul. He is pretty hyped about this card. So I feel like if Azul is excited about something, you should get excited about it too.
So here's an ancient, another, oh no, future Pokemon, my apologies. Iron Boulder
This thing's
EX.
terrible. Oh man,
Yes,
they
240
butchered this poor
HP.
thing.
I mean, I don't even like how it looks either. Just like a giant bowling ball. It's like a big round metal bowling ball. They really did this Pokemon
Yeah,
bad. But the
yeah.
attack is also really not particularly interesting. Its bigger attack is two fighting and a colorless, 200 damage, discard two energy from this Pokemon. Yeah, this guy kind of just this
What
is
are you doing?
this is bulk.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, that's a 20-cent EX card if I've ever seen one for sure.
You know,
So we can just carry
every
on.
set's got to have one. You know, every set's got to have
Yeah,
one.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Oops.
So moving
Real
forward.
quick, that the Arbok, not a
Mhm,
good card in any way, but there is an illustration rare that looks really, really good. It's like out of a tree about to eat some kind of. I think it's a toucan or whatever that Pokemon is. The
mm.
toucan that the cannon mouth thing. Really cool illustration. Right? I would encourage everyone to go check that out. Really, really cool looking card. Very reminiscent of the Spidops EX eating the Scyther kind of thing.
Mm.
Predatory kind of cards, I guess you could say.
We'll have to check him out. I think there's the illustration rares at the very end, so we can do a quick glance over.
Okay, great, great.
Gengar EX. I don't know if I mean I actually, as far as EX cards go, I don't really love the 3D effect of like the Pokemon kind of reaching through the card
Mm,
and scratching, and but I actually really kind of dig this basic EX card. I don't know why, just like the mist and Gengar's hand kind of reaching through actually kind of works for me. I think this card looks awesome. He's got the ability Gnaw and Curse. Whenever your opponent attaches an energy card from their hand to one of the Pokemon to put two damage counter on it, this ability's kind of been on a lot of different things. We've had stadiums that have had this. It's only from
hmm
hand. I think really the main reason why this card is terrible, it is probably also bulk, is that any deck that actually ends up being good in the format has ways to accelerate energy. You can't just be attaching energy from hand every turn and
Yeah,
expect your
not
deck
gonna
to
work.
survive the meta. So Charizard, accelerates from the deck. Um, Gardevoir accelerates from the discard. Ancient Pokemon accelerate from the discard. So I mean, I'm sorry, Gengar, you have a cool looking card. The
Yeah,
illustration rare also looks really cool, but this card is bulk.
yeah, unfortunately. I do know that people are kind of excited about this Sableye. 70 or 70 hit points, two colorless for this attack. Damage collector. Move any number of damage counters from your opponent's bench Pokemon to their active. Will this see play in Lost Zone? Potentially. That's one deck that's really good at placing damage counters around, obviously. So that's some natural synergy right there. Obviously not as good as Lost Mind Sableye. That card is just broken inherently, but I think it's a pretty cool card. Definitely a good way to just bunch up a bunch of damage counters to the active. Could also be a good way to set up Iron Hands if you're playing this with Iron Hands, and with two colorless energies for the attack cost, you can slot into anything really. So kind of a cool concept. Not going to see like a ton of play, but I think that attack is really really cool. And Sableye always does something interesting. I feel like whenever they print a Sableye, it always does something a little different than other cards don't. So
Yeah, they
I like
definitely
it.
pick favorites. I feel like they pick favorites with their
Oh yeah,
with their workbooks.
yeah, no doubt.
Uh,
How do you
Farigiraf,
predict for
Farigiraf.
Rigorath? I mean, that whole line just got they yeah. The names
I
are
kind of
interesting.
like this Pokemon. I think uh, Farigiraf is a cool design. This card, unfortunately, not that cool a design. Has the ability Armor Tail, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your Pokemon's basic Pokemon EX. So, I mean, basics like Roaring Moon and stuff like that, I guess, kind of just insta lose to this deck. But we've had a lot of cards printed like this that don't really get a lot of play. Miltank in the past, and what's the new card? I guess it's in Snorlax stall, but
Oh,
it's
Mimikyu.
yeah Mimikyu. But we'll see if this gets play. Its attack only does 160 damage, and it also does 32 to the bench Pokemon. But other than that, I mean, do you have any other things you want to say about Farigiraf?
No, not too much. I mean, the ability is kind of okay. You had mentioned about Roaring Moon. I mean, Roaring Moon's just going to frenzy gouging this thing and rip its head off, so probably not going to survive too long out there. But I mean, it's a furry graph. It's not supposed to be like a face melter by any means. This next card, though, Roaring Moon, a baby version of Roaring Moon. I think this card is going to see a ton of play. People already love Roaring Moon as it is. 140 hit points for two Dark Energy, Vengeful Feathers, which I have to admit, not a huge fan of the attack name. Admittedly, like Vengeful Feathers. That's what you came up with over Frenzy Gouging. Like, give me a
It
break
is
here.
just a
Anyway,
trans. It is just a translation, to be fair. So
that's
they don't
true.
always
That's
translate it the
true.
same way.
That is true. I will give you that one. 70 plus damage. This attack does 10 more damage for each ancient card in your discard pile. You're probably playing this mid to late game. I can't imagine it's going to be something you play early game because there's nothing in your discard pile yet. But say you play 3 Sada, all right, you're already 100 damage there. You already have maybe some ancient booster capsules already in the discard pile. We'll say 2, so now you're up to 120. You see what I'm saying? You can start tacking on the damage really, really easily. And as we know, ancient Pokemon, specifically Roaring Moon, flies through their deck. Squawkabilly is just going through the deck really, really fast. You're drawing 40 cards in the first turn. So potentially by turn 2, this Roaring Moon is doing 200 plus damage just like that. So I do think there is some potential here. I think the Roaring Moon baby version of this card is going to see a ton of play. I'm excited about this card. I like ancient Pokemon, as I mentioned earlier, so I think I'm going to try to make this work somehow. I've been holding off on the Roaring Moon thing just because I'm not a huge believer in the card quite yet. But I think this, paired with all the other ancient things that we're going to get in this set, there's something there. There is something there. You're going to see this card on stream, I would say, pretty soon here.
Roaring Moon made top eight, so to be a believe, you should believe. Best start
We're
believing
getting
in
there.
ghost stories.
I think we finally got the list. I think people have finally cracked the code of Roaring Moon. So I think it's a good time to start playing it. Maybe that's something I should pick up. What do we got next? Now we're on the Steel Ties. We're on the Scizor EX. I don't think this card is all that great. Definitely one of those bulk EX Pokemon. In fact, I don't even think it's worth spending any time on here. We can go probably skip that one unless you got something to
Oh,
say about it.
this right here could be
Yes.
the most
Yes.
interesting card. GLC standard. This card
Yep.
is it right
Does it
here.
all.
You want to read it? Matang.
Yeah, yeah. So Metang is going to be a stage one Pokemon. Obviously, the basic is going to be a Beldum. 100 hit points. The ability Metal Maker. Again, really, really cool ability here. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 4 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic metal energy you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. Shuffle the other cards and put them at the bottom of your deck. So, in addition to just kind of going through your deck and naturally helping you see more cards, you're also accelerating energy. I already called this. I know we talked about this in the group chat. This is going to be of huge help to Dialga V Star. And I'm telling you right now, Dialga V Star with Matang, with the Magnezone, is going to be a thing. And I cannot wait because
Buy
being
your
able to
Dialgas
pick it.
now. They're going to go up in price. I do
Yep,
think
yep.
that that's going to be a good deck. But I think this is going to work with a lot of things. I mean, also, I've never seen say on certain cards that accelerate energy before, shuffle the other cards and put them on the bottom of your deck. So not only are you accelerating, you're also like thinning your deck, thinning things to
Mm-hmm.
the bottom that you don't necessarily want. So your next turn, you can accelerate again, and you have a better chance of hitting energies because all the items and stuff like that, all the other things that aren't energy are at the bottom. So this is really cool. I think this is going to work with Revavroom. I buy your Revarooms now. I think they're going to be really good. This is going to work with Dialga. This is a cool card. GLC, I think this also is really, really cool. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it's a really cool card. And honestly, the Metagross isn't that bad either. It's not obviously the best card in the world, but again, if we're talking about GLC, For metal, colorless, 200 damage, discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. A good way to kind of clean things up at the end of the game, and you're able to accelerate energy with the Metang if you're playing a standard. So there is some synergy there. I think it's a pretty cool card. Not going to see a ton of play in the standard, but I think this could probably be slotted into a Steel GLC deck pretty easily. I have to admit, I don't know a ton about Steel GLC, but I have to imagine this card's going to see some play.
And maybe there's an older Metagross that's better. I'm sure there's been
Yeah,
a couple printings, but
yeah,
if you play this Metang, I'm sure you'll just play a Metagross to evolve into after you've accelerated all your energy. Give it a little more HP, make it an
yeah,
attacker. Um,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely. Melmetal always gets a bad rap. I don't really like the design of the Pokemon in the first place, but it always has these massive attack costs, and it's always doing like an okay amount of damage. A disappointing
yeah,
card.
they
Disappointing
do
card.
them wrong. Iron
Yeah, every
Treads,
time.
an Iron Treads baby Iron Treads future type has dual core ability. As long as Pokemon has a future booster capsule attached, it is both fighting and metal type. I always like those types of abilities. Just
Yeah,
hitting for weakness more, but its attack only does 60 damage. So even with weakness, you're only doing 120. I guess the future booster also boosts your attack by 20, makes it 80. 80 times 2 is 160. Um, it's
maybe,
a yeah, okay. Moving right
maybe.
along.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Um,
Koraidon here. I thought I played Dragon JLC, so I thought maybe this might be a thing. You have Shred for two. I believe that's actually fighting fire and colorless, 130 damage, and it's a Shred effect. It's just going to go through anything. It's okay, I guess. The
130 is
Koraidon
not
EX.
huge numbers, yeah.
No, no, it's not.
Even in
It's an
GLC.
okay card. The Koraidon EX.
Koraidon.
I do think this card will see some play in Lost Zone. Obviously we can accelerate energy really quickly with Lost Zone, so it's not going to be like a huge energy cost. Typically with dragons, they always have these really wacky energy costs. I mean, fire, fighting. How are you going to do that any other way? It's going to have to be Lost Zone. I do think it will see play again. I think it's going to be like a pseudo replacement for the Dragonite. But regardless, cool card. I like Koraidon personally. I love Dragon Pokemon. It's not going to see play anywhere else except Lost Zone.
I mean, yeah, we'll see with the ancient package with Seda, you can be accelerating different types of energies and kind of sending them to your discard pile. I don't know if it'll really work with anything else. 280 is a good number, but hitting yourself for 60. And frankly, Roaring Moon, like 280 is a good number, but Roaring Moon
Mm-hmm.
insta KOing is just better. So like I don't know
Yeah.
why a Lost Zone deck would play Koraidon over a Roaring Moon. And we've obviously seen some success with Roaring Moon being used in Lost Zone decks, traditional Lost Zone decks.
Speaking of energy acceleration, this Miraidon, people are going crazy over it. I for good reason, right? For good reason. It's a baby Pokemon. This is not going to be an EX. 110 health for one colorless accelerating peak, 40 damage. Search your deck for two basic energy cards and attach them to your future Pokemon in any way you like. Shuffle your deck. Great turn one. Excellent turn one. In addition to everything else you already have for future Pokemon, Miraidon is really going to be a great way to accelerate the energy. You start talking about the Cobalt Future thing, you're doing 20 plus damage or accelerate energy. Future is really going to go up in value with this set. And I think you're going to see a lot more play with Future. I think Miraidon is going to be a really great way to help out that kind of subtype, archetype, whatever you want to call it. Um, GLC, probably not going to see a ton of 160 damage, honestly, isn't that bad. But for the standard, I think this is definitely going to see a lot of play inside of your future decks. People are going crazy over this card. They are super
I
excited
mean, I
about it.
think this works in the future deck because, as you'll see, there's going to be, you know, variety of energies that you can use in the future deck. I think it's going to work in Miraidon. It works with your old Miraidon deck because it needs more energy acceleration. This card is just cool. It's just a cool card. Um, it'll definitely see play. Now,
Yeah,
Miraidon
absolutely.
EX, I don't think is as cool as the baby Miraidon, frankly. I don't think it's as cool as, the old Miraidon that we had that wasn't a future Pokemon, that was pure electric. This takes electric and psychic energy, and it ends up only basically doing the exact same damage that the old Miraidon did, 220 damage during your next turn. This Pokemon can't use this attack. It's almost exactly the same, I guess, except that it's Dragon type. It doesn't have weakness. Um, but it's kind of an exact replica of the old Murata, except making it more difficult by needing a psychic energy in addition to the electric energy to do its attack.
Yeah, I mean, we have the optimal Miraidon already. I mean, for me, whenever I see new Dragon Pokemon, I get excited. I try to make Regidrago work, but I don't think this is going to be it. This next card, though,
Oh wait, sorry.
potentially.
One, I really think Raging Bolt is really cool, but I guess the one other benefit that Miraidon EX, this Miraidon EX does have is it works in the feature toolbox. You know, though that Cobalion future
Okay,
Pokemon
yeah,
can
yeah.
boost his damage. You can get it up to no 300. I guess if you have four of those out, and also you can use the future booster energy capsule, which also just attaches does 20 more damage. So you can get to the 240 number, and that kills a decent amount. Basically every basic EX or V, because now there's some 230, 240 EXs. So I guess I did misspeak. It's, in certain ways can do different things than the original Miraidon. But
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's okay. But as we've been talking about this card almost since the beginning. Raging Bolt might I don't know if it's the best card in the set, but it's definitely got to be a top three at minimum, right? Um, EX Pokemon, it's gonna be a two prizer, Dragon type, 240 health. For one lightning and one fighting energy, climatic descent, 70 damage per. You may discard any amount of basic energy from your Pokemon, so it does not have to be necessarily this Pokemon. It can be anything in play. This attack does 70 more damage for each card you discard in this way. It's going to be hitting crazy numbers. And if we're thinking about things like Goldango, which technically has this card from the hand, this I would say is a better Goldango in just about every way. 70 damage for each energy card is absolutely insane. I mean, four is 280, and you can easily accelerate that back with all the cards that you have available to you in the ancient archetype. So, Raging Bull EX, it's going to be a card. Get ready.
I think so too. I mean, I saw actually Andrew Mahone talking about this card saying this card is fraudulent, this card is fake, this is not going to be a thing. I cannot believe. I mean, I think there's so many different things that synergize with this. So you got your Sandy Shocks that, after four or after, if you have four prize cards left or fewer. So if they've taken two prize cards on you, the Sandy Shocks gets to accelerate fighting into play every single turn. So you can put a couple Sandy Shocks down, you can be accelerating those fightings. Pokemon. I think you could also play Lightning Pokemon. So you play Lightning
Mhm.
Pokemon, you use your electric generators, you're accelerating with electric generators, you're accelerating with Sandy Shocks, you're accelerating with Sandy Shocks is also I think Sandy Shocks is an ancient Pokemon. So I
It
think
is, yeah.
yeah, I think you can Seda to both Sandy Shocks and your Raging Bolt. You can have a couple of electric Pokemon to accelerate with an electric generator. You need electric in your deck anyway because of the Raging Bolt. You're just discarding energy of any type, so you have a variety of ways to, really swamp your board with energy. I don't know. I think this card is pretty cool.
Yeah, the ability you were talking about earlier in Sandy Shocks, I pulled it up here. Magnetic Absorption. Once during your turn, if your opponent has four or fewer prize cards
Yes.
remaining, you may use this ability. Attach a basic fighting energy card from your discard pile to this Pokemon. And as far as I'm concerned, if you had two of these, you can stack them. So this can kind of be
Yeah.
your guy hanging out on the bench, just accelerating energy. Raging Bull can be the big attacker up front. Raging Bolt's gonna be great. I'm excited about this card. I'm gonna try to make it work. It shouldn't be that difficult, honestly. Raging Bolt's gonna be a fantastic card. I think it's gonna see a ton of play. It's just gonna hit massive numbers. I mean, what are we doing to knock out a Charizard here? Five energy? Like how simple, easy,
No.
done. I mean, you could do incredible.
Yeah. No. That's five energy, and you're knocking out
Yeah.
four energy, and you're knocking out basically anything else.
Yep.
280 is basically anything else. So with two Sandy Shocks out, that's two energy from the discard, a single attachment, and one other way to accelerate energy, whether it's an electric generator or some other way that you have to accelerate energy. A Seda, if you're playing a Seda, you can accelerate two more energy. You're easily getting four energy in every turn, and I think you can really maintain that energy acceleration and that damage. So
And honestly, the first attack, Bursting Roar, one colorless energy, discard your hand, draw six. Not the worst thing in the world if it gets stuck in the active turn one or maybe turn one going second. I guess you can use this to kind of just replenish that hand and get set up for next turn. I don't know if it's going to survive a second turn or not without anything else going on, but it is something to consider. Let me ask you this though. Arceus, is there something there? I mean, that card's just pumping energy out. I don't know if you can play with any kind of V Pokemon, but maybe. I mean, if you're just looking to get energy on the bench in play, Arceus is actually a really good way to just pump all the energy out. In addition to everything else that Ancient already has available to it, you could potentially just start pumping these things out left to right. Energy switch is a thing. Roaring Moon already plays it. You can start moving energy around. I think there's some kind of synergy there. I don't think that's the best partner necessarily, but I think Arceus V-Star with Starbirth, in case you folks don't know, 200 damage, grab 3 basic energy, attach them to your V Pokemon in any way you like. There might be something there. It's a really easy way to just get energy onto the board very, very quickly.
I wish that Moltres was still going to be in the format because Roaring Moon has been using that Moltres. You just take
Yep.
Dark type
Yep.
energy from the discard every single turn. Um, Unfortunately, that goes away. Roaring Moon's losing that. Raging Bolt would be losing it. We'll never be able to play together with that. But I'll dig. There's going to be other ways to accelerate energy. It's not just Sandy Shocks. I actually was thinking about potentially playing with Lucario. I think has
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it is able to accelerate from the deck. So the Sandy Shocks accelerates from your discard. This Lucario accelerates one energy per turn from the deck to the Lucario. You just have to put a damage counter on him, 2 damage counters on him. So, every turn if you have a Lucario out, you have 2 Sandy Shocks out, that's 3 energy, attach from him, 4 energy, and you're off to the races.
Do you slot this into Lucario Garchomp EX? Is that potentially a thing? I mean, because
And
Garchomp says, give me a bunch of basic energy, throw them on the
yeah,
bench. I think the point we're really trying to make here is if we're talking about Raging Bolt in so many different archetypes, that just goes to show one, the versatility of this card, but two, just how good it is. So again, Raging Bolt is going to be all the rage, pun intended. It's going to be a really, really, really good card.
so that's all the dragon types. We're now back into colorless. Just to quickly get through, because we have been a bit longer than we expected to be today. Sorry,
Yeah,
guys, but
yeah.
um, let me know if you see any cards that are really catching your attention.
We
Um,
can real quick on the Dunsparce, the ability. It's a stage 1 Pokemon. Dash and draw. Once during your turn, you may draw 3 cards. If you do, shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. Opens up a bench space, lets you draw 3. Probably not going to see a ton of play, but kind of interesting there.
yeah.
This Chatot acapella for 1 colorless energy. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon. Put them on your bench. With VIP rotating, this could potentially be a thing. I know a lot of people talk about the Hisuian Basket Legion for a free attack. Go get 2 with Gather the Crew, I believe is the name of that attack. So
hmm
you could argue that probably is the better play over the Chatot, but getting 3 basic Pokemon, I think, has a lot of value. That third Pokemon, I think, could really be a big difference in the game. So Chatot, maybe something to think about as well.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. Unfortunately, it's not a card that you can really just play one of because, unlike the Basque Legion, you can't, unless you have a switch, you can't attach retreat and then also attach to this Pokemon. Um, so you really have to build around it. But I mean, in GLC, I think it could be a quick way to get your bench established.
Yeah, I mean, if we're thinking about standard, Charizard plays 1 Mew, and the whole point of that Mew really is to go get your rare candies or your VIP passes. Typically, your battle VIP. That's really the whole point of that card in the deck. This could be a one of in Charizard. I don't think it's going to necessarily be the way to play Charizard in the future, but if we're just thinking about getting a bench set up early in the game, you pop that Mew out, obviously it gets rotated. You put the Chatot in, maybe there's something there. So
Um,
nothing super exciting here.
mm-mm.
I didn't really say there's anything noteworthy. This Minchino Chinchino. Okay, so right off the bat, going to be something you're going to see in GLC. Colorless is already a very good type to be playing in GLC. You have Archeops, you got things like the Snorlax with Thumping Snore. So you have a lot of good colorless attackers already inside of GLC. Minchino Chinchino, Chinchino being the stage 1 Pokemon out of this evolution line. For 2 colorless energy, special roll, 70 damage per. This attack does 70 damage for each special energy attached to this Pokemon. You had mentioned Lugia
Yeah.
potentially being something here. Definitely. I mean, why if you especially have two Archeops on the bench, this is potentially your big attacker at the very end of the game that just blowing up anything in front of it. I think
And
it's a
it's a
cool
single
card.
prize attacker, so
Yeah, yeah.
you
What
know
do you lose?
280. And I mean, obviously, stage one, it's gonna, you put down the Minccino, people are gonna know what you're gonna be doing that next turn. They might
Sure.
potentially boss it up because they're just really scared of what's about to happen. But you just put two out. You might be a little tight for space, I guess, in a Lugia deck.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not sure if it's perfect, but I think it'll actually get Lugia to probably be relevant again. It has been relevant for a little. It has not been relevant for a little while. So 280 damage for 4 special energy is very cool.
Yeah, I will say in GLC real quick before we move on here. Um, Archeops accelerated twin energy and a double colorless energy. There's no negative effects of those energy. Actually, it's just four energy. 280 damage in GLC is godly damage. So nothing's going to survive that, even the Whale Lord. So I think this Chinchino is going to see a ton of play in GLC. Pretty excited about this one.
I know I'm scared. I don't want to be playing against any Chinchinos in GLC.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big. And the illustration actually looks really good too. Very very pretty card.
Drampa, no, there's a better Drampa for GLC. I don't think that one's
Yeah,
particularly interesting. Um,
Iron Jugulus. If this Pokemon's active spawn, no, nothing great on that one. Iron Jugulus, really really cool design, but just has not seen a good card since it got released. It's just
no.
I think it will see something good in the future, but for now, it's kind of garbage.
But now we're getting to the interesting stuff. Ace specs.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the first introduction to ace specs in a long time. I think both the ancient and there's one specific ancient ace spec and one specific future ace spec. I think they're both very cool. This one is obviously the ancient ace spec. It says draw a card for each of your ancient Pokemon in play. I mean, that's just a pretty cool kind of draw supporter
Crazy.
as an item.
Yep.
So, you are playing an ancient deck, you have all ancient Pokemon out, just draw six. No negatives, you don't have to discard and draw. You have a huge hand potentially. You're playing Roaring Moon, you're playing it with Pokestop, and you're drawing items into your hand. Just research. You could have you could have a 10 card hand and then drop this and just now have a 16 card hand. Like, that's nuts. That's crazy. I don't necessarily know, like I said, we've talked about this in person, but like there are so many powerful ace specs, especially one we'll see later that's really, really powerful. Like the Guz, it's basically Guzma in an item.
Hmm.
Um, is this stronger than that? I don't know. In a specific ancient deck, I think it could be. I mean, just a quick draw six when you need it at the end of the game to just get that one piece for a combo that you need, just to make sure you're drawing through your whole deck, could be pretty vital. So at least it's
And
interesting.
And for those of you folks who aren't familiar with the concept of like an ace spec card, it's very similar to like Radiant Pokemon. You can only have one Radiant Pokemon in your deck, and it can only be that single Radiant Pokemon. So you couldn't do, excuse me, a Radiant Charizard and a Radiant Greninja in the same deck. It doesn't work that way. Same concept with the ace specs. You can only pick one and only one, and you cannot play four copies. It's literally one copy of this card. That's the reason it's so bright. It's meant to be super obvious. Like it's also a really easy way to tell. Did I prize this thing or not? Is my pink card in my deck or not? No. Okay, great. Then I have it here. So, yeah, Awakening Drum. It's going to be insane. It's going to be a really, really good card. And like you mentioned, we were talking about this in person a few days ago. I think they did a really good job of diversifying the ace spec cards. Now, obviously, some are going to be better than others, but for the longest time, we saw that Countercatcher Guzma ace spec thing, and everyone's like, "This is the only card anyone's ever going to play. There's no point in printing anything else." Clearly, there is because look what they did. You have Awakening Gem. We're going to talk about the future card in just a second here. It's a good card. There's no doubt about that. The ability to just draw six off an item is absolutely insane. It's going to see play. Will it see more play than the Guzma item thing that I keep on forgetting the name of? Probably not. But Awakening Drum is it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic addition to your ancient deck.
Well, just a quick, super quick aside. What do you think of the design? Like pink, be really, really bright.
Mm,
What do you think of the ace spec
yeah,
design?
yeah, like I said, I mean, it's a good way to like. Did I prize this or not? It's really easy to like glance over some of the original, the typical trainer cards that gray that they typically have. Eh, I
I
think
have
it's
to
just a
say,
little too.
I,
You like
I
it?
dig it. I dig it. I don't know
Really?
why. I really
Wow.
like it.
it's just a little too in your face. They could have done something a little different, but I mean, what are they going to do? Like, you can't make it gold. We have those already. Silver borders on this card probably isn't going to really work. I think this kind of magenta color is probably the best color, honestly, that you could have picked for it. I'm just not a crazy fan of it, but will I
Mm.
play them all? Probably. They're also really cool.
So let's skip
Bianca
over.
Sincerity, I believe is
Yeah,
what that is. Um, Heal all damage from when your Pokemon has 30 HP or less remaining. I think this card might be a one of inside of Roaring Moon because you're already going to be doing a ton of damage to yourself with Frenzy Gouging, so there might be something there. Otherwise, I can't imagine it seeing play
it's too
anywhere
specific.
else.
It's
Yeah.
too specific. So this card though, this is meta defining. This is VIP
Yes.
pass, but better, but obviously only for your basics. So the decks that need to, the decks that are playing Pokemon with 70 HP or less, it searches your deck for up to two basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less. Those are going to be your stage two decks. This is just going to help balance stage two decks. They're going to be able to, have that time. They're going to have the resources to get set up and get, established. Because without VIP pass, and if a Charizard bricks or whatever, especially with cards like Iron Valiant in the format, or things that are spreading damage, those decks would never get set up. They would never survive. I think this is pretty cool, but it also doesn't give the VIP pass to these super strong EX basic attackers like Roar. I mean, even as a person who's plays Roaring Moon and Miraidon and stuff like that, they're really powerful decks that can attack on turn one. They don't necessarily need the support that these evolving decks need. You have to have rare candies. You're putting in four rare candies in your deck. You're putting in four Buddy Poppins. You're really, spending so much of your deck building, making sure that you can guarantee that, turn two rare candy evolution, four Arvins. So I'm glad that the, stage two decks are going to continue to have these resources. I think this is a well-designed card. Um,
Yeah.
but
I
I
mean,
do
this
think,
probably should have been what VIP Pass was in the beginning, right? It shouldn't have been any basic Pokemon. That was just. And the thing is,
yeah,
when that card first came out, everyone's like, "It's only good turn one. Like, why
yeah,
would I ever play this?" I pulled a bunch of them and just kind of, I don't even know what I did with them. So much regret. Obviously, it's rotating soon. Battle VIP Pass. I think we had talked about this in the past, actually, with Lost Zone. Everyone's like, "Oh, Lost Zone, Lost Zone." It's only Comfy. That's all it is. It's
yeah,
only Comfy. It doesn't get your Cramorants. It doesn't get your Sableyes. It does allow you to have that kind. It's a little more consistency to Lost Zone. If you brick turn one, you're not really doing too much. You can pull this. You could maybe this is your top deck on your second draw, and then you're able to get those Comfies out, really start to get that Lost Zone engine going. But yeah, I think it's excellent game design. I think it's a very balanced card. It allows the game to kind of continue on in the shadow of the rotation of Battle VIP without the meta feeling like I have to play everything perfectly turn one or else I'm going to lose the game. And that's kind of what the meta is right now. If you don't get a perfect turn one and your
yeah.
opponent does, it's over. It's done. Say goodnight. Wrap it
I
up.
like that we're moving away from that. The one
Yes.
caveat to that is, I appreciate this Buddy Pop, and I think it's built very specifically for a certain type of deck. Those decks that play those 70 HP Pokemon. I do think that though, with rotation, we're losing a lot of ball search. We're losing a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ways to establish ourselves. So it's okay that we're losing VIP Pass, but like we're losing level ball. We're losing, um, the psychic one, the one that allows you to
Fog
search
Crystal. Fog
Fog
Crystal.
Crystal.
Yeah.
So I just wish we had any ball, new ball search coming out, and I haven't seen anything announced. So, you know, right now all we have is Ultra, Great, and Nest, I think. It would be
We
nice if we
got
just had,
Pokeball. We got Pokeball.
no one's playing flip, ball on a flip. So unless they
Oh
put
man.
timer ball out, maybe people will start doing flips again. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so that's the one thing I do wish that we were getting. So here
Yeah.
is moving forward. Here's a future supporter card, Cryptomaniac's Deciphering. Search your deck for two cards, shuffle your deck, and put those cards on top of it in any order. I don't know if this will be meta defining. I don't know if it'll be, played in tons of decks, but I think certain types of decks might actually play this. Miraidon might actually play this before that you play an electric generator. Guarantee that, the two energy electric generator. Other than that, I'm sure there'll be other thing, before you Bibarel, you want to guarantee that you're going to draw into a two card combo that you need. That could be interesting, but maybe you'll play a one of or a two of or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a one or two of is probably where you want to be. I'm thinking about things like the Corellia, that allows you to go and use refinement, discard a card, draw the top two cards of your deck. That's an instant way to go ahead and just grab whatever you need. Maybe that's geez, Gardevoir is getting picked apart so much by rotation. Maybe that's a way for you to go to get that Gardevoir EX. Maybe also a way for you to go and get Screaming Tail, I believe, or
Mhm.
is it Screaming Tail, the Jigglypuff
Yeah,
freaky
Screamtail.
deformed thing?
Screamtail.
Scream Tail, thank you. Yeah, maybe that's a way for you to kind of get those attackers out right away and allows you to start doing damage. So Cryptomaniac definitely will see play. It's not going to be a four of any deck or anything like that.
No, no.
Overall, will probably make use of it. I could definitely see something like Lipard trade. That's I think still going to be in the format. That could potentially be a play there as well. So it's an interesting card, and I really like it. Also, Cryptomaniac, the whole idea behind it almost sounds like a little creepy. It's very futuristic, uncertainty. I like kind of that theme they're going on with that. So, speaking of creepy though, Dangerous Jungle. The art on this thing just looks
Looks
like somewhere
great.
you don't want to be. Yeah, it looks fantastic. But it's a stadium card. During your Pokemon checkup, to put two more damage counters on each poison Pokemon. Um, this is including you as well. So if you're poisoned, you're taking extra damage. So I think a lot of people tend to think, oh, yeah, it's just for my opponent's stadiums, obviously affect the entire playboard. So this is going to count on both sides. So something to think about there. You got to be a little careful with that.
Emergency board, I think this is a little bit too specific. I don't think this card's really going
Yeah.
to do anything. Retreat cost of
No.
Pokemon this is attached to is one colorless less. If that Pokemon has 30 HP or less remaining, has no retreat cost. I mean, it's. I think there are better options. You still have Beach Court in play. Beach Court is in
Yeah.
standard. It lowers the retreat cost, so I don't necessarily know if you need a tool card for that.
Yeah. These board cards always have something to do retreat. I would say this is probably the worst one out of the bunch. So probably not going to see
Eri,
a lot of play.
this is just Snorlax fodder. I don't even really want to talk about it. This is terrible. Your opponent reveals their hand, choose like two item cards from there and discard them. Yeah, don't want to do that. That sounds terrible.
No.
But
No.
um, Explorer's Guidance. Look at the top six. This is an ancient supporter card. Look at the top six cards of your deck and
Mm.
put two of them into your hand. Discard the other cards. I really don't see this card getting any play. You have to discard four of the six cards that you look at. Of course, if you need a two-card combo, that might be beneficial in certain situations, but I just think there are better supporters. Just straight up researching your hand away to look at the next seven, or Ionoing, or just able to look at six cards and not having to necessarily discard them. Like I don't know what the benefit is there. So
I will say though, pairing this with the baby Roaring Moon, you can discard four ancient cards, and plus this one makes five. That's already 50 damage right there. So it might be a one of, but yeah, as you mentioned, if you're just looking to draw cards and see more cards, Professor's Research is, I mean, that's always going to be the best draw supporter in the game. So yeah, Explorer's Guidance, we'll see some play, but don't
mhm.
don't buy four of these cards. You don't need it.
Now this card,
Another stadium, yeah, Full Metal Lab. All metal Pokemon, both yours and your opponents, take 30 less damage from attacks. I don't know. I don't really see it seeing a bunch of play
Rev
either. Dial.
Reverum.
I mean,
Reverum, he already takes less damage. He already takes less damage from his ability. He's taking
oh
less
man,
damage from his four tools he has, and Full Metal Lab. He can never. What's dead may never die. Reverum will live forever.
we get it. You're on the Rev Room train or the engine, the car, whatever you want to say. So you know what? Build the deck. What we're gonna play, we're gonna definitely have to play that. I think it's gonna be a super tanky Pokemon. In addition to this, it's definitely gonna help. You might get it with Dalgavi Star that bumps up to 310, so that's kind of cool. But um, it's extremely niche. It's only going to see
Yeah.
play in one specific type, and it's going to be metal. Hand trimmer. I don't think that's what we're going to call it in English. I can't imagine it being called
Yeah.
hand trimmer in English. But we talked about this earlier. Potentially something you're going to be seeing in Snorlax stall. Each player discards until they have five cards into their hand. Um, this is again crazy with Snorlax stall because you're just passing the turns. You draw pass, draw pass, draw pass. Really easy to get 10, 20 cards. The only thing I will say about this card is it says each player. So as a Snorlax player, you may not be wanting to discard all those cards from your hand necessarily. Eh, maybe.
Yeah.
Just it's just a maybe.
I think it's interesting at least.
Yeah.
we haven't had an item like this. It's not a supporter.
Hmm.
You can still support, or you can still Iono them after. You can really hurt them. You can do those attacks that we mentioned to lower their hand size as well. So it's interesting. Heavy Baton.
Yeah.
I think this card is going to be really really good with Iron Hands with Miraidon. Obviously,
Hmm.
it's very, very specific. It has to have it. This I'll read the description. If the Pokemon with a retreat cost of exactly 4 this card is attached to is your active Pokemon and is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, move up to 3 basic energy cards from that Pokemon to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. So there are, only a few Pokemon with a retreating cost of 4. One
Yeah.
particular one is Iron Hands, and he takes 4 energy to do his attack. So one of the problems with Miraidon is, setting up that or Iron Hands in Miraidon is setting up that Iron Hands is very, very costly. You're spending, probably potentially 2 of your electric generators to get it established. You're wasting a lot of resources, and then once he gets knocked out after the next turn, all those resources are gone, and keeping the tempo after that is difficult. But if you attach this heavy baton,
Hmm.
you make sure those energies flow back onto your Raichu, flow back onto Miraidon to make sure that you can keep that tempo up. I think it's pretty cool. I
Is
think it'll see
is
play.
this like a pseudo dynamotor kind of thing? Like you play two line of Marie Flappy, maybe you take out those two. You're going to take out those 4 cards because of rotation. Maybe it's a 2 count of heavy baton. I can't imagine playing any more than that.
Also,
It's a
I
way to
don't know
keep
if
the
you've
energy in play.
I don't know if you kept up with the Miraidon. So Miraidon's actually changed pretty dramatically the way that people have built it. It's now the peony
Mm.
build, and
Yeah. Yeah.
actually not only they play 4 peony, but I've seen the ones that have performed the best the last few regionals have also played like potentially 2 or even 3 EXP shares. So attach EXP shares
Oh.
to Pokemon on the bench just to make sure that those energies keep flowing. And instead of attaching 2 EXP shares to the bench, you attach 1 baton to your Iron Hands,
Hmm.
and it sort of does the same thing as like 2 or 3 EXP shares on the bench.
Yeah.
It keeps those energy in play for the Raichu. The final Raichu attack, where you need to take one big KO on like a Charizard or something, you probably have to discard 6 energy from across your entire board. Just keeping that energy in play is very important. Heroes,
No
here's
one's
some.
going to be playing. No one's going to be playing Raichu anymore anyway. They're going to be playing Raging Bolt. So yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But Hero's Cape, another ace spec card. This Pokemon, the Pokemon this card is attached to gets 100 plus health. So it's luxurious cape minus the extra prize. Maybe 1 or 2 decks played at that, but I don't think this is going to see as much play as maybe they were hoping. 100 plus health is great. Obviously, 100 plus health is going to be something big. You throw in a Wigglytuff EX with the special energy, you're looking at a 450 health behemoth. But who's playing Wigglytuff EX? So it's cool,
Yeah,
but
the
yeah,
problem with this card is it's a one of, and
yeah.
there are many decks that play vacuums, and you waste your ace spec card on a one of tool, and then immediately it gets vacuumed away. That's gonna feel bad.
Yep,
So
yep.
I do think it's a cool card. I think Stall plays a lot of Bravery Charms. A lot of Stall might play this just to make their Snorlaxes survive a little bit longer. But other than that, mm, yeah, I don't really
Yeah.
see it getting a lot of play.
Yeah, another A spec card here. We actually have 2 more. We can probably bunch these up pretty quickly because again,
Mhm.
I don't think they're going to see a ton of play. Maximum Belt might, but Master Ball, the classic Master Ball. Search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it in your hand. Why you would play this over anything else, I don't know. We have Ultra Ball still. I mean, you have to discard 2, sure, but you can play 4 of those. It's much easier to find. I think they probably just made Master Ball because it's the iconic Master Ball, but otherwise, no one's going to see this. I do have one of the original prints of this card. I was really excited to find that I still had it in my collection, but again, who's going to play it? Probably no one. Maximum Belt, another ace spec card. This is another tool, and again, we just talked about it. Just like with the cape, you can just vacuum this thing away and not have to worry about that. Attacks used by this Pokemon. I'm sorry. Attacks used by the Pokemon this card is attached to do 50 more damage to your opponent's active EX. So things like Vs or V Maxes, V Stars, things like that does not apply to those.
I think
Again,
this is
who's gonna?
I think this is actually going to be good because unlike the cape, yes, that can be vacuumed away. but that prevents you from surviving when like the tool you attach it to, in hopes to survive that next turn. If it gets
Sure.
vacuumed away, you don't survive. This you attach it and do the attack. You've already sort of accomplished the goal of
Okay.
getting that
Yeah.
50 extra the 50 extra damage, and you've taken your knockout. It's kind of like a what are the items that Mew plays to get the extra damage? You play
Tablet. Something
yes,
tablet.
something tablets.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's just a quick tablet, a quick boost to an attack, it allows Charizard to get more damage early in the game against, it's only doing 180 at the beginning. Now it can do 230 turn one, or it can do, you know, 280 turn two after taking some knockouts. So it just boosts your damage output early, or when you're not quite hitting the numbers. You know, when you don't want to use your frenzied gouging on Moon, you can drop a maximum belt and get quick extra damage. I think it's interesting. Yes, it'll get vacuumed away. You may only get to use it once, but that 50 extra damage to your opponent could make a knockout, and that could keep your tempo up. So
Yeah, I think Charizard is actually a pretty good candidate for this card. That, in addition to the counter catcher Guzma ace spec card that I, for the life of me, cannot remember what it's called. But I could see this being played right at the very end. Charizard's attack obviously does more damage as the game goes on. You're taking more prize cards. So Maximum Belt might be something you could slot in there, just a little extra damage to get you over the top. Maybe that knocks out a big VMAX or something. So Maximum Belt, probably one of the top three ace spec cards that we're going to see, to maybe top four because they have the future in the ancient. But a good card, but again, not going to be seen nearly as much play as those other cards that we're going to talk about. So if they're even in this list here, Morty's Conviction, not really much to say. Excuse me about this card, but the secret illustration rare looks amazing. Definitely something that you should take a look at.
order
Order
box
box.
also. Any card that makes you end your turn
Man,
is terrible. Just this is bulk. This is terrible. Here we go. Here's the one that everyone's excited
Prime
about.
Catcher. Yes. I cannot remember the name of this card for the life of me. Prime Catcher. As we talked about, a card from, I believe, the Sun and Moon era. Guzma was a supporter back in the day that said switch your active Pokemon with one of your, or switch your active Pokemon, no, switch a bench with the active, and then you do the same for your opponent. So essentially, some kind of twisted, mutated escape rope. But you get to choose. Prime Catcher is that in an item. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. If you do, switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. Busted. Absolutely incredible. It's going to be an amazing card. This is going to easily, by far, going to be the most popular ace spec card people are going to be playing. Um, what else can you really say? It's just a really, really good card.
This will be the a spec that most decks play.
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
said, I think the ancient decks might play that ancient one. Future might play this future card that we're about to talk about, and the maximum belt I think is kind of okay. I think that'll probably be third, like a distant third.
Um,
But other than that, those are the three I think big aspects from this. Let's quickly talk about Reboot Pod. I do think this is really good. Um, Reboot Pod, attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to each of your future Pokemon in play. This really can keep tempo up with a future deck. You have six future Pokemon in play. You attach one basic energy card to every single one of them. At the end of the game, if you're not able to keep that attachment up, if you don't have a good energy attachment um, engine, I don't necessarily know what the energy attachment engine that the future decks are using. This is a really cool one. You can you know energy transfer after as well, like move it around, move it to your active. This is pretty cool. Six. I mean, what other cards can attach six energy in one go?
I mean, nothing, right? There's nothing else in the format that even comes close to that. Maridon gets you two for the one colorless energy. I guess that's kind of
Yeah.
something that comes from the deck directly. But um, I would be surprised to see that this card is not a top three ace spec card for sure. I think it's going to be this, the drum, and of course the prime catcher with the maximum belt coming in at a fairly distant fourth, I would say.
Salvatore, very cool. Search your
I
deck for
think the
Sorry.
oh, go ahead, go ahead. No, no, sorry.
Search your deck for Pokemon, accept any Pokemon with an ability that evolves from one of your Pokemon in play, and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. Then shuffle your deck. So we've had cards like this in the past where you're basically just able to
Hmm.
evolve the same turn that you put a card down. Yes, it's very situational. Only certain decks will want to play this, but I do think being able to even Tina, like which is the best deck in the format already. One of the biggest problems is you know you put down a Tina turn one or turn two, 220 HP is kind of a an amount of HP that can be easily hit turn one. So if they get that boss, they're taking that two prizes turn one or turn two. Um, but 280 is not necessarily numbers that people can hit very early on. So if put down your one Tina, evolve it up right away, um, then you're kind of good to go. You're kind of safe, and you prevent yourself from getting that turn one two prize knockout. Which we don't need anything like helping Tina be better, but I guess
Yeah,
they do need to be hitting those colorises to also get the tempo up. So
yeah.
it's situational. If you hit a bunch of compies, you're able to get three compies, and you might be able to be okay not getting that colorist out that turn. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Wally years and years ago. That was very similar to this card. Wally obviously was better because it didn't have the exception of the ability. This could be something you actually play in JLC as well. I mean, I can definitely see a world where this card potentially takes over Wally, just because that ability maybe isn't the biggest thing in the world, but there are going to be attackers in JLC that don't necessarily have an ability that just swing for big numbers. And this could be the card that, again, maybe is more applicable to certain types in GLC compared to Wally. We'll see some play, but again, maybe just like a one of at most. Yeah.
Mist Energy, I think this card is pretty good.
Yeah.
It'll protect you from the Roaring Moons. It'll protect you from the Giratinas. So pretty cool energy. But oh, one last A-Spec. An A-Spec Energy, I think this card's pretty bad. Not really much to say about it. It's
Yeah.
just two energy of any type. It's like a reversal, but only two, and you don't have to be behind. But like the problem with this is you only have one of them in your deck. So, you know, you attach it to one Pokemon once, and you can get that attack off, and maybe it gets knocked out, and then you're done. Like that's it. I guess it got its use, but that energy's gone. It was used like I don't know. I think it's just very specific, and it's not not that helpful.
Yeah. I mean, we were joking earlier about the Iron Boulder being the 20 set EX card. This might be like your $1 A spec card. I don't think you're going to see a lot of time playing it. It's fun. It might be something you can slot into like a single prize deck or something like that just to kind of get the energy accelerated a little bit quicker. But otherwise, yeah, easily the worst card out of the A spec cards. So that's it.
So just to
There it is.
quickly look at these secret rares you kept
Hmm.
on mentioning. Just wanted to show off the beautiful Sawsbuck, the Shiftry, Relicanth. They all look
I didn't
amazing.
even
They have
know that that was actually like a side by side art. The Sawsbuck thing, like
yeah.
I had no
Hmm.
idea it was like one big picture. That I want it now, to be honest. The
Yeah.
Relicanth I think looks really good as well. Minchino Chinchino looks excellent. The Drampa, man, I don't know enough about this world. The Drampa looks awfully familiar to another famous dragon that's outside of Pokemon. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. I'm forgetting the
Never-ending
name of it.
story? Is it the Never-ending
Maybe that's
story
it.
dragon?
Yes, it
I
looks
think it's
very
the
similar
Never-ending
to that.
story.
Big,
Yeah.
peaceful, not necessarily violent or scary dragon with children on the back. Like it's very reminiscent of that.
Hmm.
Um, the raging
Raging
gouge or
fire,
fire,
gouging
raging
fire, gouging
fire,
fire.
gouging fire. Yes, thank you. Again, the head is just way too long. Man. They hyper extended that thing. It's just a little too much for me. But here we are. We have some special illustration rare cards. These all look brilliant. I think they
Yeah.
all look fantastic.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
really,
very
really excited
excited.
about
The
these.
supporter
Yeah,
too. The supporter with Gengar in it. I mean,
yeah,
all of these cards. They always knock it out of the park with the illustration rares, but I feel like
yes.
every year they just get better and better. So I can't wait.
And I will say a lot of these cards actually, if you played Scarlet and Violet, they actually are references to that game. You see the I'm forgetting the word that they use inside of the games, but essentially like the Doomsday kind of Pokemon. Some of that stuff is applicable here. You see some of the stuff that you get inside of the Area Zero. I think there's some references to that as well. But obviously, a lot of these Pokemon are going to be in their natural habitat from millions of years ago. They're ancient Pokemon. So just excellent art. Really, really good job. I think they all look fantastic. I'm excited about the set. It's going to be fantastic inside and out. It's a great set for collectors. It's a great set for the meta. It's a great set for competitors. It really does it all. How can you not be
Yeah.
excited?
Introducing ace specs again for the first time in a long
Yes.
time. Ancient
Yes.
and future Pokemon are really coming to the forefront now. They're really becoming a threat. They're going to be ancient decks, future decks. I'm really excited. Just counting down the days. Too long, frankly. Like too, we still have a couple. We still have like a month and a half at least till we're really getting these cards. But um, very excited. And Japan's getting these cards, I think, like this week or next
Yeah.
week. So,
Yeah.
maybe I'll buy a couple cards. Maybe we'll do a couple pack openings. We'll see. Anyway, this is our first podcast. It's gone a little bit longer than we wanted to, but thank you guys for listening, all three of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was fun. That's it for us today, guys. I really do appreciate your time. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us for a couple hours. Temporal Forces comes out sometime in March. We'll have to get you a specific date sometime in the future, but you got some time. Go out there, buy your Paldean Fates, got all your shiny Pokemon, and go ahead and rip all the packs that you want there. But save some money because I'm telling you right now, Temporal Forces is where you're going to want to be. Honestly, this set might be more of a single set than anything. Yeah, you're going to want to open packs, get these secret illustration rares, but the singles are going to be the way to go because there's going to be so many good cards coming out of the set. Unless you're wealthy and you can afford to spend a bunch of money on packs and just rip them and hopefully pull them, singles are going to be the way to go here. I cannot stress that enough. It's going to be just an excellent set. I'm
Save your
excited.
money.
You're
Don't buy
excited.
Paldean Fates or don't buy Paldean Fates. Save your money. I'm just
I mean, so I don't remember the previous fates. What was the previous fates
Hidden
of
Fates. There was a
all
Hidden
hidden
Fates, I
fates?
think.
Those cards actually held their value really well, and they're actually starting to go up. So if that's more your niche, go for it. Definitely something you want to do. But if you're a competitive player, grab a couple things, maybe buy some singles in Paldea. I'm sorry, Paldean Fates. But this set here, meta defining, earth shattering cards. We talked about so many different cards. I think that's the reason it took so long this podcast today, honestly, because there's just so much to talk about.
Well, again, thank you guys, and hopefully we'll be back. 1 week from today. We'll try to keep a regular schedule, and
Yep.
thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.